morning, it's 7 o'clock and it's A-level results day for hundreds of thousands of teenagers across the country.
This morning we'll hear from students, teachers and indeed the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson.
Plus, a mother who lost her son to knife crime says Keir Starmer held her hand and promised he would make things better. Does she think he's delivering?
It is Thursday, the 15th of August. Your headlines.
I'm at a school in South London where some students will be opening their A-level results live on Sky News.
A nervous morning for teenagers waiting for those results, and universities too, as student numbers and budgets are squeezed.
As Ukraine says it's pushing deeper into Russia, soldiers on the operation show us a captured rifle, even Russian rubles.
Plus, we've got a special report from America's opioids capital, where former addicts are helping people to get clean.
I know there's mothers out there that are afraid to get help, you know. And not just mothers alone, but there's people out there walking the streets.
I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off.
And Taylor Swift returns to the UK for her first live shows since a foiled terror plot in Austria. A very good morning to you. The envelopes have been sealed and the emails may have been sent. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland get their A-level results this morning. We wish all of them the very best of luck. Let's get out to Sadia Chowdhury. She's at St Mark's Academy in South London. And Sadia, those children and their parents, no doubt, on tenterhooks right now.
Yeah, but I'm standing in a very empty hall. This is usually a dining hall, but pretty soon those doors behind me will open up and the students will be flooding in to collect their A-level results. It has all been set up. There's tables set up in a U shape so that people can come in one way, leave another. This is sort of like we're in the calm before the storm, because the school realizes that in about an hour's time, this hall is going to be flooded with students. They're all going to be opening their results excitedly. Everyone's going to be talking. It becomes really, really sort of chaotic. For the students who do really well, it's, you know, they get their places at university, they celebrate. For those who don't do so well, maybe they'll have to have some advice given to the students. So there's some desks set up here for careers advice. People due to start coming in around 8:30, and we expect some of them to open their results live here on Sky News.
Sadia, thanks so much for that setup, and we'll be back, as Sadia said, throughout the day with her. Also with Daniel Henry, who's at another educational institution today. But let's get a preview to the reaction and what it all means with the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, who I'm delighted to say joins me now. A very good morning to you, Secretary. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello, good morning.
So many teenagers across the country are awaiting their results today. What is your message to them as that crucial moment in their lives to date is about to arrive?
It's a really exciting day for our young people. I know how nervous they'll be at the moment, and I do just want to say a huge congratulations to all of the young people collecting their results today. They've shown enormous resilience and hard work in the face of lots of disruption in recent years, and they should be enormously proud of what they've achieved. And their teachers and staff deserve our huge praise for all the work that they've done to support young people. To our young people receiving their results, there are lots of great options out there in terms of what you can go on to do next. For those young people who get what they need and move on to their destination of choice, that's brilliant. For those who perhaps fall slightly short, there are lots of options out there. There are lots of people that can be there to provide advice and support, whether that's the school or college, UCAS through Clearing or the National Career Service. So I want to wish them all the very best, but to reassure them that there are plenty of opportunities that are there.
As you said, there are lots of different options. It's not just university. When the last Labour government came in 1997, there was a huge push based on the numbers back then to get more people to apply to university and indeed go to university. Snapshot for me where you are now as an Education Secretary. Is the balance about right in terms of percentage of students that end up going to university? Is it a bit high? Is it a bit low? Where would you like to see it relative to today in 5 years' time?
I want all young people to be able to choose the path that's right for them. Now, for many young people, that will be university. For many young people, it will be an apprenticeship or going into the world of work. It's about having those range of options that are available. And I think, sadly, whatever the headline figure in terms of university applications, we do still see, sadly, very big differences between different parts of the country. So, for example, you're far more likely to apply to university from London in the southeast than you are from the northeast, where I'm from. So it's not kind of a flat figure across the country. There are big gaps, big differences, and actually that they've been growing in recent years. And the same is sadly true where it comes to some of our outcomes. And I'm absolutely determined to turn that around, because I don't believe where you're from should determine what you can go on to achieve, and it certainly shouldn't limit your choices and options.
I wanted to talk a little bit about university funding. It's no secret that they feel they're underfunded at the moment, and tuition fees have been essentially flat since 2012, a slight increase in 2017. As a result, universities have been taking on a lot more foreign students. They now make up 26% of the total, and over 40% of their total funding. They can charge overseas students a lot more. From here, what is the lesser evil in your eyes, or the lesser negative in your eyes? Letting the percentage of the total student pool increase from overseas students, or putting up the tuition fees that they can charge domestic students?
So first of all, it's not the case that international students are taking places that would have otherwise been available to domestic students. In fact, those international students will be cross-subsidising the studies of students from the UK. And we've seen a drop, actually, in terms of undergraduate admissions from international students in this phase. But I do think international students have got an important contribution to make in our towns and cities. They're part of the growth and the opportunities that will be available for the whole community. And our universities are a tremendous engine of growth in so many of those places, and I want to help them to succeed. Now, I know they face lots of challenges at the moment. That is absolutely crystal clear. And that's why I took urgent action, immediate action, on becoming Secretary of State, to refocus the work of the regulator, the Office for Students, on financial sustainability. Because I think the last government were far too focused on picking fights and on suggesting somehow that university wasn't for some people, rather than actually acting in the national interest to make sure that our brilliant universities, who are, a beacon around the world and are so well respected, are able to succeed into the future, and that's my focus.
Should the visa restrictions for foreign students that the last government imposed right at the end of their government, so we haven't really seen the full effects of it yet, should those be reversed?
We don't intend to change that, but what I do say is that international students who come to our country and study do make a tremendous contribution. I mean, in economic terms, into where it comes to the communities where they will come and live. Sunderland, where I'm a Member of Parliament, we have lots of students that come from around the world, often as postgraduate students, that study and make a contribution. But it's also a big part of our reach around the world, the impact that we can have as a country, the business links, the trading links, the opportunities and the bridges that we build between nations. And I think education is just a force for good across our world, and we should recognise that and work together as nations, not what we've seen in recent years.
What about tuition fees for domestic students? They were £9,000 in 2012. If they'd been adjusted with inflation, they'd be over £12,500 today. They're not. They're £9,250. So a £250 increase in 12 years. I mean, should there be some closer mapping of inflation increases? Because clearly costs would have gone up significantly for universities. And will you at any point in the 5 years ahead put up tuition fee caps for domestic students?
So I do recognise the challenge, and I hear that message from institutions as well. But I think that's a really unpalatable thing to be considering, not least because I know that lots of students across the country are already facing big challenges around the cost of living, housing costs. Lots of students I speak to who are already working, lots of jobs, extra hours in order to pay for their studies. So I do want to ensure that we reform the system overall. I've been looking at what the options around that will be, and I hope at a later stage to be able to say more about that.
I wanted to touch on private schools and the plan to introduce VAT on those fees, of course, from January. Two private schools in Scotland, Kilgraston School and Teasers, have both announced in the last couple of days that they're closing. They're saying that that's because student numbers have fallen, in part because of increasing fees, and, of course, ahead of what is due to be a bigger increase in fees when VAT comes in. which they have cited as something coming forward. Clearly, it's ahead of that coming into play, as opposed to immediately in reaction to it. But I just wondered whether seeing those sorts of stories emerge makes you pause and think about the possible potential downside of this policy if more private schools do end up closing as a result, or whether, in fact, it's not seen as a downside of the policy.
Well, I think what we've seen is that private schools are businesses that can make choices about how they manage their budgets, the level of fees that they charge, and ultimately it's about how attractive they are to families in terms of the numbers of students that are sent there. We have seen private schools in recent years whack up their fees year on year, way beyond inflation, and that has priced out lots of people. And I think what we've seen with some of the examples that are being discussed are schools that were already experiencing big budget shortfalls, weren't attracting the same numbers of students that they might like to attract, and that's what's driving what we see here. Now, our plans to impose VAT on private school fees are about driving high standards in our state schools. We've got a big challenge at the moment in terms of recruiting and retaining brilliant teachers. I'm determined that we will crack that we will make sure that teaching is a great place for people to come and work. We've already made progress in terms of the teaching award, the pay award that we were able to deliver. But we need to do more, and we do need to raise money to invest in our public services and to invest in our schools. And that's my focus as Secretary of State, making sure that we've got brilliant teachers supporting our young people, and that does involve making choices.
And if private schools do close as a result of the policy, does that matter?
I want private schools to be an option for those parents who choose to send their children there. Of course, they will be able to continue to do so. I know the parents want to do what's right by their children, and that's absolutely as it should be. But I would just gently point out that 93% of children in our country go to state schools. That's where I'm determined to focus my efforts as Secretary of State, to tackle some of those big gaps that we see opening up where it comes to outcomes for our young people, making sure that the background that you're from, the town that you're born, doesn't determine what you can go on to achieve. And that does involve making political choices about how we raise money, how we spend money, and that's what imposing VAT on private schools is all about, driving up standards in our state sector, where the majority of your viewers will send their children to school.
A final word, Education Secretary. GDP just crossed 0.6% for Q2. Not too bad?
Well, we know we face big challenges in the economy, an economy that's built on weak foundations. The new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has sought to stabilise the economy, demonstrate that we will be taking the action necessary to support investment into our economy and to get growth back in a much more sustained way into the future, so we can improve living standards, improve our public services, and make sure that Britain is a really great place for people to come and invest.
Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Let's just reiterate that breaking news on the GDP that came across during the interview. The latest figures for economic growth coming in at 0.6% for the second quarter, April to June. And the former Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has just said that it's proof that Labour inherited a growing and resilient economy. Her successor, Rachel Reeves, saying that the government has a huge challenge after more than a decade of low economic growth. Well, Darren's here to give us a reaction as well to what the Education Secretary was saying. Just quickly first on the GDP numbers, because I guess it'll almost be quite refreshing to get 6 months into a new government so that at least there's a comment on what they're doing as opposed to what the last set of governments.
Precisely. And you know what? We just had the statements through from Jeremy Hunt and from Rachel Reeves. And it's essentially, I'm not going to read them out because it's a reflection of what we were talking about yesterday, which is the Conservative Party incredibly frustrated, saying, hold on a second here, Labour. You've been saying the economy's in a terrible state. Look at the stats that we've seen this week, whether it's on employment, wages, inflation, and today on GDP, and 0.6%. It is in line with expectation, but it's pretty good. That actually the economy is doing pretty well, and we should get some praise for that. And Labour almost not even celebrating today's GDP figures, saying, you know, this is a sign of how difficult things are and how we've had an inheritance that we're going to have to sort out, and we've had a decade of low growth. Just on the figures themselves, so as I say, between April and June, 0.6% overall, services up 0.8%, production down 0.1%, and construction down 0.1%. So services really adding that boost. We are a service-led economy. And it does seem that the general election, which was held, of course, in early July, but most of June, had a bit of an impact and caused some uncertainty. So it might have dragged it a little bit, but the government's behind the scenes and the country will be pretty happy with 0.6%.
Yeah, plus 0.3% quarter-on-quarter, decent enough numbers, sort of in line with what people were expecting. Touch on the interview with Bridget Phillipson.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting on two levels. First of all, as you rightly kind of pushed her on, where is Labour ideologically on universities? Everyone remembers Tony Blair, let's get 50% of people go to universities. There was just no sense of that, was there, from Bridget Phillipson? There was a sense she wants people to go to university and she's not going to attack Mickey Mouse degrees like the previous government did. But there seemed to be this suggestion that people should be able to pursue the educational attainment that they want to do. And that's great if it's university, but it's great if it's not. And this sense of inequality that Labour clearly feel is an issue here. I thought the really other interesting thing is on universities themselves. And we didn't really get any concrete answers to what is now a fundamentally big problem for our universities, and that is funding. It is clear in recent years that international students have been making up a larger percentage of the pie in terms of funding. Visa changes mean that fewer international students are likely to arrive here. So what does the government then do? Do they increase domestic tuition fees? I think that would be pretty unpalatable. But if they're not going to do that, where is that funding gap, that real funding gap that might see universities close? Where is that going to come from? And, students, those going to universities, would feel they already are inheriting or will do an incredible amount of debt. Interest on those repayments is incredibly high. But frankly, the government at some stage might have to decide that those domestic tuition fees have to go beyond the 9,250 that they stand at the moment.
Really, really interesting stuff. And these are such key questions, of course, going forward for the long term for the country, but also the most important thing today.
Of course.
Good luck.
Indeed.
Good luck to everyone getting...
Absolutely. I remember that slow walk to school, and it felt like it was going on for miles and miles, because you're in your own head, aren't you, thinking, what have I got? You slowly open that envelope.
Well, it's so funny.
So
you guys were saying envelope. We were talking about this earlier. And obviously now everyone gets emails. I had to phone in to get mine. So at least I'm not as old as our producer had to get them by a postal letter. But yeah, email almost makes me more scared about it. I think it's...
No, yes, I agree. But there's also, I think, something about opening the envelope. Maybe it is a bit old school.
With friends too, supported amongst your peers, going along.
See, I would have to do it on my own.
Really?
I couldn't do it in front of people. And I actually remember reporting on A-levels years ago, and you go to the school, and people open up on national TV, and you're like, wow, you were brave.
Or crazy, yeah, I agree.
I think the reminder today, though, is if you don't get your grades, there are actually lots of clearing places this year, and you still have the chance to get the degree and the university you want, even if you don't get the grades this morning.
And good luck to everyone. Right, time for all of the day's other stories. Liz, got that for us?
Yes, I've got that covered. Thank you, Wilfred. The World Health Organization has declared Mpox outbreaks in Africa a global health emergency. Well, there's been more than 15,000 suspected cases of Mpox in Africa this year, and 461 people have died. This is mainly in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's a shortage of vaccine, and the World Health Organization says the outbreak could spread. The police watchdog has told the Met it's failing or needs to improve in 7 of 8 areas of service and is not managing the risk posed by sex offenders effectively. The police inspectorate report says the largest force is particularly bad at investigating crime and managing offenders and suspects. Its performance update calls for the Met to immediately review its day-to-day management of teams dealing with sex offenders. ASLEF said a deal has been agreed in principle with the Department for Transport, which it will put to its members. Now, if members approve, it could bring an end to a standoff with 16 English train operating companies stretching back to July 2022. Well, the deal that ASLEF has agreed to put to its members involves this: a 5% pay rise for the financial year 2022-23, a 4.75% increase for the year 23-24, and a 4.5% rise for 24-25, all backdated and pensionable. Now, women are receiving late breast cancer diagnosis, facing delayed treatment too, and this is due to a shortage in specialist staff. Now, the scans used to detect cancer can only be carried out by someone trained in breast imagery. Now, it's thought the NHS workforce has reached critical levels with job rates of up to 20% in the department.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you. Now, talks on a ceasefire in Gaza start today, but Hamas is accusing Israel of setting new conditions and say they won't take part in those talks. Let's bring in our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn. He joins us from Haifa in Israel. Dominic, good morning to you. How critical are these talks, not just for Gaza, of course, and Israel, but the broader situation in the Middle East?
Well, I don't think you can overstate it. I mean, so much hangs in the balance and hangs on the outcome of these talks. There's the possibility of ending a conflict that's killed an estimated 40,000 people, that's displaced people from as much as 90% of the Gaza Strip, injured people up to around 100,000, devastated Gaza's health facilities, and there is the possibility, if this deal can be done, of ending that, but also extracting from Gaza and from the hands of Hamas the 120 hostages still there, of which as many as 60 or 70 are thought to have died. There's a huge appetite for success here. Everybody from all the major powers, America, Qatar, Egypt, who've been spearheading the push for these talks. But Israeli defense chiefs have made it pretty clear they want to have a deal. The Israeli public wants to have a deal. The families of the hostages obviously do as well. So there's a huge push towards a ceasefire deal. And also there is the other jeopardy of the possibility of, if these talks fail, then the retaliatory action that Israel has been bracing itself for 2 weeks now, following the assassinations of Fuad Shukr, Hezbollah commander in Beirut, and Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, who was killed in Tehran. Israel has been expecting retaliation for those attacks from Iran and Hezbollah, who've made it pretty clear that that is likely. They've now said, Iran, that they will attack Israel directly if these talks fail. So there's a huge amount at stake, but it has to be said that expectations are being set pretty low. There are a lot of problems with these talks, not least the fact that Hamas doesn't seem to be planning to attend at the moment. What they're saying is that Israel has shifted the goalposts, have added new demands at the last minute, and they want to go back to the deal that Joe Biden presented a few weeks ago, that they say they agreed to and were told that Israel had agreed to. And it has to be said that in a fairly extraordinary move, senior members of the Israeli negotiating team have handed to the New York Times this week documents that do seem to show the Israeli Prime Minister shifting his position at the last minute in these talks. So there's a huge lack of trust, a lack of confidence and faith from both sides in the other. But there is a huge amount of diplomatic pressure trying to make these talks succeed. And I think it's probably the best chance we've had so far of this war coming to an end. But as I say, no one's holding their breath about any successful outcome this week. And if it does fail, it could lead to the carnage in Gaza continuing, but also a much bigger war erupting if Iran and Hezbollah do attack Israel directly.
Dominic, thanks so much. Dominic Waghorn there for us in Haifa. Let's go now to Ukraine, who have taken more land and prisoners as its major incursion into Russia enters its second week. The operation has forced Moscow to mobilise reservists and declare a state of emergency in some affected regions. Well, our defence and security editor, Deborah Haynes, is there for us on Ukraine's eastern border for us this morning. Deborah, the incursion continues.
Yes, it's day 10 now of this shock attack by Ukraine into Russia, an operation that's really turned Russia's war in this country on its head. We travelled up to the Ukrainian side of the border with Russia's Kursk region, and this is what we saw.
Every military vehicle bearing this mark is part of Ukraine's mission inside Russia. At the border, we meet soldiers who've been on the operation from the start.
Oh, wow. So what, you got that from a soldier?
Yes. They show me a captured rifle.
Trophy. A trophy, wow, yeah.
And other souvenirs.
And they're running away, you say? They run away?
Yes, they're running away. Just drop everything and run away.
Yeah. So do you think you can go further into Russia?
Yes.
Vladimir Putin has ordered his forces to repel the invasion. But these troops haven't been deterred as they head back into Russia's Kursk region. We follow as far as the crossing point.
We're at the Ukrainian side of one of the crossing points just over there. That's the Russian checkpoint. You can see there are vehicles, Ukrainian vehicles. They've got the triangle of this operation moving across into the border. this was the place from where Ukraine launched its counter-offensive.
But the troops standing guard here are on edge because there's still a risk from next door. It means we can't stay for long.
We've been told that there's been a drone strike here recently and it's just not safe to wait around, so they've asked us to leave.
With Russia just on the other side of that fence, this region of northeastern Ukraine has long been in range of its firepower. Driving away from the border, we pass the rubble of a recent strike. But also a lot of Ukrainian armour heading in the opposite direction to fight back. As well as seizing land, Ukraine has also taken hundreds of prisoners of war in the assault. Sky News was given access to a site where dozens have been held, many of them young conscripts. They're kept in small rooms in the cells along this corridor. We're not showing the Russian detainees in compliance with international law, but we did talk to some.
They describe their shock at being captured. They say they're being well treated here inside Ukraine, but they hope that they can be swapped for Ukrainian prisoners of war so they can go home.
One official says more than 200 detainees have passed through here since the assault began on the 6th of August.
If everything checks out, they're sent to detention camps. These camps house other prisoners of war, where they await exchange.
For those locked away on both sides, that day surely can't come soon enough.
It's an amazing report, that. What's it all doing to Vladimir Putin domestically in Russia? Is the full news of this incursion really spreading across the nation?
I mean, it's impossible to hide the fact that thousands of Ukrainian troops have just invaded his country, seizing land, and it is all across Telegram channels, and also it's been in the state-held Russian media. I mean, for a politician who has spent his career, a previous spy, who spent his career building a reputation of being a strong man, to have his country invaded in this way. It's the first time Russian soil has had any kind of incursion since the Second World War. Must be a huge blow to President Putin. Whether he acknowledges that in his private moments, who knows? He's obviously putting on a brave face. He's faced perilous moments in the past. You'll remember that mutiny last year of his mercenary chief, the Wagner boss, who had that attempted storm on Moscow, which did peter out, and President Putin did survive. So it's important not to count him out. He's ordered his commanders to repel this Ukrainian assault. But as we keep hearing from the Ukrainian side, they are pushing further in, and from what I saw yesterday, there's clearly a lot of armour still heading in the direction of Russia.
Deborah Haynes, as always, thanks so much. Still to come here on The Breakfast Show, is the government doing enough to tackle knife crime? We'll hear from the mother who spent the last 10 years campaigning in her late son's memory. Is the US any closer to ending its opioid crisis? We'll have a latest report from our Mark Stone on that. And should we feel guilty for enjoying the sunshine? We'll hear why no is the answer to that. I've answered it already, but we'll explore why we're putting the question forward.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Well, the plan seems to be to head to the police station where the policeman who fired the shots was based.
And everything, his memories is all gone.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
We have to get Trump out of the White House.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly...
God love you.
And beyond the United States, I report from around the world.
This is a town that is effectively encircled by the Russians.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our planet.
I can hear now quite a few explosions in the distance here in Jerusalem.
What do you think of ISIS?
Everybody here, they know the truth of ISIS.
Welcome back to Breakfast on Sky News. Well, coming up, we'll have a special report on the US opioid crisis, and we'll be talking about the impact of knife crime here in the UK. The latest statistics are due at 9:30. But first, all of the day's top stories. Leah's got those for us.
Thank you very much, Wilfred. Good luck to anyone picking up their A-levels today, because students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland received their results this morning, and grades are expected to fall back down to pre-pandemic levels after a spike in A's and A stars during the years in which the results were teacher-based assessments instead of exams. Ukraine says its forces are continuing their advance into Russia's Kursk region. President Zelensky claims his troops have gained between 1 and 2 kilometres in the last 24 hours, but Russia insists it stopped Ukrainian troops from gaining further territory. And talks on a Gaza ceasefire deal resume in Qatar later today. Iranian officials say Iran will attack Israel directly if the negotiations fail to reach an agreement.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has promised Labour will get a grip on the UK's knife crime crisis. And later this morning, we'll learn more about the previous government's track record when the latest figures on the number of people being put behind bars are released. Can the Prime Minister live up to his word to tackle knife crime? Joining us to discuss, Pastor Lorraine Jones-Burrell, who lost her son to knife crime. She joins us once again. Thanks so much for joining us, Pastor Lorraine. Always great to see you.
Thank you, Will.
I want to get to that particular question in a moment, but it's been a very bumpy couple of weeks across the country. What's the latest temperature in your community?
Well, I'm from Lambeth, Will, and people are absolutely fearful. It's catastrophic. I can't find the words to describe how people are feeling. I'm not just covering Lambeth.
Why in particular?
Because of the knife crime, because of the incidents, because of the riots, the conflicts with cultures, racism. Everyone is just absolutely shocked, horrified and fearful. We've had more homicides, Will. Like I've said, it's not just Lambeth. Since I was last here with you, I've been to at least 3 other sites: North London, East London, West London. Body tents. Children are on school holiday. I was in North London and I saw a mother and her child, and the child was pointing, saying, "What's that, mummy?" It was a dead body tent. This is what has happened in weeks. I've been putting out posts warning parents, keep your children at home during these protests. One of my videos got 2 million views. The amount of comments are vital. If the government want to look at that and get to grasp with how people are feeling, I'm happy that we kept our youth home, because we saw just this week what happened with those 3 youngsters that were convicted because of what they done. It's a state of emergency, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the statistics are saying. But on ground, Will, it's devastating, and I am really disappointed that grassroots community leaders like myself have not already been called for us to be embraced, to be able to deal with the scale of need which is in the community.
Are you disappointed in Sir Keir Starmer? Didn't he make a promise to you before the election? Are you worried that was an empty promise?
I'm not disappointed in him, but because I know he has a huge, huge task. And I believe what he said to me. To make human contact isn't something that is regularly done. He held my hands and he said, Pastor Lorraine, if I'm elected, I promise things will change. Some things won't be immediate, but some things will. He has a team. It's not all about him. It's about the team he appoints and them reaching out to us. And that's what breaks my heart. 2 million views on one video. The homicide site, I had 340,000. Why am I not called? I got the most horrific wake-up call. My wake-up call was seeing my son, who had been stabbed, his chest open, lying in his blood. I can't forget that. I'm trying my best. My foundation needs financial help, mentivity. They've got a donation page on their site. 1 million people to give just £1. They need money too. We've got centres, but we need help.
What is it that you are doing, Pastor Lorraine, in the community to help those people that feel under threat, like you described to Wilfred?
Initially, I took over from my son and resurrected the boxing gym. We were dealing with young people that wanted to box. I'm affiliated with England Boxing. So every week we deliver boxing for amateur boxers. It's now grown. I'm having referrals from social services. We're working with children that have got special needs, autism, because parents are bringing in their children to engage in the physical sport to help them psychologically, emotionally, as well as physically. Some are being bullied. They need to come in to engage with us to build up their confidence so they're not fearful and isolated, which all affects education. Lambeth saw what I've been doing over the 8 years, and they've given me another building, which is a community centre. At the centre, we're running a summer camp. We're having a lot of children coming in there doing arts and craft, gardening, sports, gaming, so much.
So what do you need from the government? How long can you conceivably continue to support the community if you don't get that help, that financial help from the government?
Just yesterday, I received an email from the Arch Company. It's our rent review. The rent's going up. In just 1 year, it's £25,000. It doesn't seem a lot, but it's a huge amount. I'm understaffed. I need money to pay my staff. The cost of living is real. I run a food bank. I'm feeding these youth. I'm feeding families in the community. If I don't get help, I'm a woman of faith, and I do not want to say that I won't last. But we need financial help. We need more than finance. We need the backing of the government to put their resources with the grassroots so that we can change the tide. I pray in Jesus' name that they listen, because if they don't, those 3 little girls that got killed, they got killed by a child, a 17-year-old with mental illness. Why wasn't he not helped? I have a lot of families and kids that have got mental illness. We want to help them, and we don't want them to carry out a barbaric crime in killing more lives.
Pastor Lorraine, it's always fantastic to have you on. Such an important message, and we can all see how much delivering the message means to you. Keep us updated, please, and look after yourself as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us,
Thank you.
as always. To the United States now. Tackling the fentanyl drug crisis, a key issue in November's election. Huntington, West Virginia, has long earned the title of the overdose capital of America. The consequence of 81 million opioid painkillers pumped into the city's pharmacies over an 8-year period. The highly addictive pills turbocharged a cycle of addiction, one finally being broken by community effort. Sky's US correspondent Mark Stone has this report.
It is easy to come to a place like this and see just hopelessness, because there are pockets of it everywhere. In that sense, this could be one of so many American communities. But spend a little longer, looking a bit closer, and it turns out this particular place is bucking a grim trend.
I'm Brandon Christopher McMillan, and I've been now clean for 4 months.
I've been here in recovery for 7 months now.
And I've been in recovery for 64 days.
Huntington, West Virginia, lies on the Ohio River, at the point where 3 states meet. The overdose capital of America, at least that's what they used to call it, flooded by doctors with opioids, miracle painkillers which created communities of addicts. Well, now, all over town, there are recovery centres. Brandon Scarberry is the boss at Recovery Point, a place he knew long before he ran it.
You remember all this because you did it yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it like it was yesterday. There's no question about it.
With a capacity of 100, the centre is almost full, with young men like Brandon McMillan at the start of his journey to sobriety.
And what was it that made you decide, enough, I need to be here?
When you lose everything and you're completely at your rock bottom, you have nowhere to go, you lose all family, they all give up on you, and that's not what I want.
There is nothing sophisticated or clinical about this place. It's basic, grassroots, run by people who know what it's like to be addicted. It's free, but with reminders of the price of addiction.
We call it the death board, and a lot of times it hits home for a bunch of people because they come in, they know these people on the wall. They went to school with them, they were in prison with them, they were in jail with them.
You do recovery dynamics, which is...
Stephen is a little bit further along the path, and you can see it in his face.
What does this place mean for you?
It saved my life. I really believe that with all my heart. I actually worked in the coal mines, and the pill epidemic, where it was just a really big thing in the mines, giving coal miners the Oxycontins, and that's what led to really my addiction. And then it progressed once the pills were gone. It kind of changed on the streets, and heroin came around, and that's how I got pulled into doing drugs.
Painkillers, street drugs, crime, jail, repeat. Here, they're breaking that cycle by themselves. Overdoses are now counted by the week, not by the day. It's step by step, and they must do it from the beginning.
My name's Christina Sargent, and I have 5 years in recovery.
Because the unborn here are victims too.
When I would go through the physical withdrawal symptoms of not having heroin and fentanyl, he stopped moving completely.
And he stopped moving because he was in withdrawal as well?
Yes, he was in withdrawal. In my stomach.
Christina now works here, helping so many other mums.
Because I know there's mothers out there that are afraid to get help. You know, and not just mothers alone, but there's people out there walking the streets that don't even realize this is a treatment center.
The lesson for so many American communities is from those who know how hard it is to beat addiction, but how possible it is too. Mark Stone, Sky News in West Virginia.
Mark Stone's report there. Now, NASA has not decided how to bring home 2 astronauts from the International Space Station. We told you about this story a few weeks ago. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams arrived in the space station in June. They're only supposed to be there for 8 days, but the Boeing capsule suffered failures en route, leaving them stranded. They could now be there for 8 months. NASA said it's further analysing data before making any decisions. Here is a comment from NASA yesterday.
It's really taken some time to work through this and getting experts together, because we don't have enough insight and data to make some sort of simple black and white calculation.
I've got so many thoughts on this story.
It's so insane.
I don't know if I'm more struck by how ridiculous it is that a NASA operation can leave 2 astronauts stranded for 8 months, or the fact that we're not worried or stressed about the fact that they're not safe up there. I mean, quite remarkable that you can...
They've got it covered in terms of food and they're safe, essentially. But for me, it just brings back that movie. Did you ever watch Gravity with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't go into space. I've interviewed Tim Peake and he's spoken so eloquently about what it's like in space, what you see. But for me, it's a firm no. They will get back safely, a little bit longer than they expected, but I'm out.
I mean, it's like going on an 8-day holiday and you're like, oh, it's 8 months now. You're like, this is great, until you realise you're literally in the smallest capsule with people...
With someone you don't like.
...that you may not get on with. I mean, physically, they're all going to be fine. And weirdly, the solution to this might be Elon Musk. He might have
SpaceX,
to... SpaceX sticks them home. But it must be that, psychologically, it must be quite difficult. I know they're trained for this, but I said this idea...
Would you want to do an 8-month holiday? I don't think I'd even want to do that.
Well, I'd be very happy with an 8-month holiday.
Ooh.
I would also love to...
Don't love your job.
I would also love to go to the International Space Station.
Would you actually?
Oh, that'd be so cool. You know, it's being manned.
So wait, are you going to do one of these private space tours?
No.
If someone offered it to you for free, would you do it?
Of course, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, no, would you
I'm with Leah, not a chance.
No?
Maybe in like 20 years when there's a million bits of data points that it's incredibly safe and there's something more to do up there. What's the point? I'm all for...
I want to see space!
Yeah, I'm all for very, very fast travel to get us to, like, Australia in a matter of hours and all that, which I think that then is the purpose to it. I don't really give it...
Well, the purpose is that you'll get to be in space, explore zero gravity, and get to see Earth from a distance.
No, there's so much down on Earth that you can see
very good
and explore.
photographs available as well.
There's so much down here on the ground that you can see.
Let's have a little listen to Taylor Swift.
I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off.
The reason being is that her first tour following those shows cancelled in Austria because of a suspected terror plot will be taking place here in the UK. That coming up, is it Wembley tonight? We got the detail. Wembley tonight is the details. And the London shows kick back off. We have run out of time to chat about this because we've talked so much about space. We'll be right back after this short break. The question, as we start, we're going to play whilst we interview, is...
White moves first, by the way.
Oh, you get to go first?
I mean, you can have the white pieces if you'd like.
Oh, I see. Is that a thing? Gosh, I don't know the details.
Yeah.
OK, well then...
Maybe we can...
Guess first. Stress,
Okay.
Grandmasters first. So we'll keep chatting whilst we're playing. But is there even a chance that I can win this? I mean, my point on that is, if we talk about other football and the like... a professional player can miss a penalty and they can have a bad day at work and all of that. Is that something that could happen here, or are the chances... Oh gosh.
That
it's
was
not going
quick.
well.
I mean, the chances are quite slim.
Less than 30 seconds.
Why? They're quite slim.
I feel like if chess grandmaster were to play a beginner or even an amateur player, I mean, it's very likely that, the amateur would probably lose 100 times in 100 games. By the way, this is already checkmate.
Go on.
It's already over. There you go.
I mean, I was being quite cheeky here. I went for a fairly dirty trap, but...
I mean, you did last 1 minute and 20 seconds, and you were working at the same time.
Yeah,
so
you were
I was
trying
quite
to get
impressed.
through those questions.
Yeah, I started playing when I was 6. My father taught me the game, and then, I went to my local school chess club, and I just got better.
And what does it mean to be a grandmaster, and what does it mean to you personally?
I think grandmaster is quite a huge achievement. It's quite a rare thing to achieve. Like, I think there's even a statistic that there are more billionaires in the world than chess grandmasters.
Wow.
So, technically, I mean, there's about, 800 million people who play chess. So, technically, it could be said that, being a chess grandmaster is harder than becoming a billionaire. I certainly look up to some of the past, some of the world champions from the past, especially Magnus Carlsen, who actually just so happened to sign this chessboard.
I saw, and that's the chessboard you used to play with me because you knew I was of similar quality. But you played with Rishi Sunak, is that right?
Well, I didn't exactly play him. I don't think he knows too much about how the pieces move, but he did seem fairly keen about chess. Yeah. And this is why, actually, the government did announce some funding for chess last year. Computers are already better than grandmasters.
They already are.
I mean, there's this thing called chess engines. And, yeah, these things are very strong, incredibly strong. I think since, from 1997, ever since they beat the former world champion, Garry Kasparov.
You couldn't beat them with that great move you pulled on me?
No, definitely not.
Welcome back. It's been a hot few days here in the UK. It's not just humans who found it hard. We might be getting used to warmer temperatures, but not so straightforward for wildlife. Some species said to be at a particular risk from our changing climate here. We're joined now by Dr. Sanjayan, Chief Executive of Conservation. We're going to have a conversation. International. Thanks so much for joining us, and very, very good to see you. You're also here to meet some of the new government and have some conversations more broadly there. Is there particular agenda points, or is it just to explore what they're thinking about environmental matters overall?
A bit of both. I mean, I think we have a unique moment right now where the world really does need global leadership on nature and on climate. If you look around the world, leaders, the ones that have been able to speak out, are politically in a maybe tricky position or coming out of power or not quite there. I think the UK has a unique moment right now to do this. The world needs that action. And the amazing thing about nature, right? Climate, maybe not so much, but nature, it's a unifier. You can find allies on both sides of the aisle, if you will.
That's such an interesting point you made that, because it got a little bit politicised in the last year coming up to the election here. But again, having spent 6 years in the US, nothing like it is in the United States. Right. So I'm interested that you say it's a unifier, because I would say it is a unifier here, certainly relative to the US, even if there's occasional minor politicisation. In the US, it is surely a party political divisive issue, would you not say?
Climate.
Yeah.
Yes. But only, sort of only in the halls of power. So look, I have a place in Montana, middle of the country. If you go and talk to farmers there and ranchers there, they know what's happening to the land. I mean, American public understand it. I mean, you talk about the hot temperatures here. I mean, I got to Europe yesterday. I was in Geneva. It was warm. You come here, it's warm. In the US, it's frankly worse. And so we've had the hottest years, big floods, massive wildfires across the United States. So the ordinary people who are in farms, rural communities, understand something is happening. They're frightened by it. What they're not seeing is a clear path for action. So we have made it political in the United States, but nature, no. Nature is still a unifier. I mean, we had a bill on nature that passed with bipartisan support just a few months ago. So I still think it's an amazing moment, right, when the world is more divided on everything you can think of, race, politics, economic, background. At this moment, the one thing that both sides somehow seem to find common ground on is nature. We had 192 countries in Montreal last year agree to protect 30% of the planet. I mean, 192 countries. I'm talking China and the United States. I'm talking Rwanda and DRC. So I do think that this is a moment, but it really does need global leadership, and that's where the UK government can really lean in.
And what are you looking to for the UK? Because you said you're here to speak with Sir Keir Starmer and his team. What's positive in the UK in terms of climate, the conversation here, that you feel like potentially we're leading in that conversation?
Yeah, so you're right. So, if you think about David Attenborough, who I grew up with, he has the ability to bring all sides to the table, right? So you do have a unified, not perfectly unified community, but a unified community that does care about nature and understands climate and what's happening here. Anytime there's a new government, there's a new start. And I think this government in particular, particularly when you look around the planet and you ask yourself, where are the voices? Who are the real leaders, right, at the top of government who are really standing up there? There are some in the global south. We need some in the global north. So there's just an opening right now. And if you want to exert soft power in the global south, this is a winning issue. Whether you're in Kenya or Indonesia or Brazil or South Africa, this is a winning issue. We know that ODA, overseas spending, is going down. But this is an issue where you can get a huge return on investment, a big bang for the buck. So that's why I think the UK has this opportunity to sort of lean in.
What are we good at in this country? What are we bad at?
You're good at caring, and you're great at communications. You don't always show up with the money. But there's a trick to this, right?
Don't look at me directly. That is directed at you, Prime Minister.
But there's a trick to this. London can become a green financing capital. There's not going to be enough government money to do this. What we need is the private sector. And London is positioning itself in this clear way of being able to attract green financing. So that's sort of another lever that this government has that they should be able to lean in on.
Have you seen the government yet, or it's coming? Your meetings?
I've met folks, but not since they have come into power. So this is going to be my first
keep us up. We'll come back afterwards and keep us updated with how it's going, because we've been interested to see how much they engage and how you rate their progress, whether it's in a few weeks or a few years.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much
Thank you.
for joining us, Dr. Sanjayan, CEO of Conservation International.
You got
there at the end. We've got so much more still to come here on The Breakfast Show. We'll be back at the top of the hour with all the day's stories, of course, on what is A-level results day. Again, wishing all the young adults out there the very best of luck. Good stuff. Thanks so much. A very good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock. It's A-level results day for hundreds of thousands of teenagers across the country.
Yeah, this is the morning we'll hear from students and teachers, and we'll tell you why there might not be so many top grades this time round.
Plus, we'll look ahead to the Premier League.
A great show coming up. It's Thursday, the 15th of August. Here are your headlines.
We're at a school in South London where some students are set to open their A-level results live on Sky News.
This morning, 4 teenagers waiting for their results, and for universities too, as student numbers and budgets are squeezed.
As Ukraine says it's pushing deeper into Russia, soldiers on the operation show us a captured rifle, even Russian rubles.
Crucial Gaza talks could be about to start in Qatar, aiming for a ceasefire, but will Hamas even take part?
Plus, we'll have a special report from America's opioids capital, where former addicts are helping people to get clean.
I know there's mothers out there that are afraid to get help, you know. And not just mothers alone, but there's people out there walking the streets.
How an 8-day trip to the International Space Station for 2 astronauts might turn into 8 months. And
I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off.
Taylor Swift returns to the UK for her first live shows since a foiled terror plot led to cancellations in Austria. A very good Thursday morning to you and welcome to The Breakfast Show. Well, the envelopes have been sealed and the emails may have been sent. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland get their A-level results this morning. We wish all of them the very best of luck. Let's get out to Sadia Chowdhury, who's at St Mark's Academy in South London, along with Daniel Henry, who's at University College Admission Services in Cheltenham. Darren here as well to discuss the political implications of all of this. But Sadia, first and foremost, of course, we're wishing all of the students the very best of luck.
Yes, and the preparations are underway for them to receive those results. They'll be streaming into this hall very shortly. We're at an academy in South London. We can go now and speak to the principal here, Hannah Fahy. Thank you very much for speaking to us. What are you expecting from the results today?
Yeah, so we're really, really excited about welcoming students today. It's going to be a fantastic day of celebration for this wonderful community. Last year, we obviously saw results return to pre-pandemic levels, and although we don't have the official figures yet, Bridget Phillipson has announced that we expect to see results sit very similarly to those. However, what I can say here at St Mark's is that we're celebrating unprecedented results this year. We've actually seen the A-star to A-grade boundary move up to 37%, whereas last year for pre-pandemic levels that was 27%. And similarly, 92% of our students have achieved an A-star to C-grade, and last year that figure nationally sat at 75%. So we really have broken those boundaries today, and I can't wait to welcome the students through the hall to have a celebration with them.
So you've clearly seen those results, but the students haven't. What's your advice to them when they come in, especially to those students who might not have got the grades that they wanted?
Sure. Today is absolutely not about that national picture. It's about every single young person who walks through the door, and that will be the same across institutions across this country. We know that the majority of students have achieved their firm choices. However, some of our students, we know there will be disappointment, but what I would say to those pupils is just stay calm, don't panic. There is always something out there for you, and the UCAS website has a wealth of information that you can go onto through clearing, but also your schools will have prepared a range of support for you. So just take a moment to speak to people around you and take up that support so that you can take the right offer for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for speaking to us, and we wish the students the best of luck. They're due to start coming in about an hour's time, and some of them will open their results live here on Sky News.
Well, Sadia, we look forward to that, and again, wish those bold students the best of luck, in particular the ones that will open their envelopes live on camera. Let's get to Daniel Henry next. He's at UCAS, University and College Admission Service in Cheltenham, and as we just heard from the school head there, clearing will be taking place today. It's going to be a busy day at UCAS.
will be a very, very busy day at UCAS. They're expecting as many as 10,000 calls to come through this call centre here. They're expecting peaks, obviously, from about 8 o'clock, which is when the results come out, and also expecting peaks at around 1 o'clock. So if you're trying to get through and you're finding it's busy at that point, don't be surprised. The picture for grades, as we understand it so far, is that 82% of people are expected to get their first place this year. But for those who don't, this is where they'll come through, trying to match up people who haven't maybe got the grades they were hoping for, or perhaps have changed their mind, with a new course that they can get onto so they can carry on their higher education journey. There are around 30,000 courses available through clearing this year, which is lots. So the advice really is, if you haven't got the grades you were looking for, or you've changed your mind, don't panic. There should be somewhere else for you to go if you still want to carry on your higher education journey, and the people here are here to help you.
Daniel, great stuff. Thanks so much to Sadia and to Daniel. Darren's here, as we discussed, to focus on the political implications of all of this. Bridget Phillipson was with us last hour. What were your key takeaways?
Well, I think the big question, for the government at the moment is a recognition that the university sector is not in a good place. And it's not in a good place because of funding, fundamentally. What has happened over the last 10 years or so is that effectively we've had a cut, if you like, in terms of tuition fees from domestic UK students. That's because tuition fees have essentially been held steady, really, since 2012. And that means millions, billions of pounds that were being raised is simply not available. And then you add to that what has made up a bit of that shortfall in recent years has been international students who pay a hell of a lot more than £9,000 a year. There's visa changes that the last Conservative government have brought into place that the Labour government are not going to remove. And that means probably fewer international students. And that means a university sector that is going to see a big deficit in the amount of funding. What did the government do about this? It's clear that they don't really have an answer at this stage, or if they do, they're not telling us. Have a listen into what the Education Secretary had to say to you a little earlier.
I do recognise the challenge, and I hear that message from institutions as well, but I think that's a really unpalatable thing to be considering, not least because I know that lots of students across the country are already facing big challenges around the cost of living, housing costs. Lots of students I speak to who are already working, lots of jobs, extra hours in order to pay for their studies. So I do want to ensure that we reform the system overall. I've been looking at what the options around that will be, and I hope at a later stage to be able to say more about that.
Just quickly on this, Darren, I mean, she said it would be very unpalatable. Is this one of those areas that this Labour government simply cannot touch throughout a 5-year parliament, to put up tuition fees?
I think given the fact that at one stage the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn was talking about getting rid of tuition fees altogether, I think it would be unpalatable to a lot of Labour voters. But at the same time, this is a government that's also saying it's going to be prepared to take unpalatable decisions to sort things out. And within government, universities and crisis are something they're very aware of, something they're going to sort out. Just on the A-levels results, by the way, Keir Starmer's just tweeted, the Prime Minister in the last couple of minutes, saying congratulations to all the students, that they've worked hard and that nothing should hold them back, and that this government's mission will break down barriers to opportunity for young people across Britain. And that is the other, just finally, key point in all of this that Bridget Phillipson touched upon. It's still that inequality in access to higher education, particularly to universities. There's real divergence in different parts of the UK. And again, another massive challenge for the government.
Darren, great stuff. Thanks so much. Time now for all of the day's other stories. Liz got those for us.
Thank you so much, Wilfred. Yeah, GDP figures dropped in the last hour and the economy grew 0.6% in the last quarter, led by the service sector. But there was no growth at all in monthly stats in June. The ONS says business delayed purchases until after the general election. Now, the growth rate across the 3 months was the second highest among G7 nations, second only to the US, which had growth of 0.7%. The police watchdog has told the Metropolitan Police Force it's failing or needs to improve in 7 of 8 areas of service, and it's not managing the risk posed by sex offenders effectively. The police inspectorate report says the largest force is particularly bad at investigating crime and managing offenders and suspects. Its performance update calls for the Met to immediately review its day-to-day management of teams dealing with sex offenders. The World Health Organization has declared Mpox outbreaks in Africa as a global health emergency. There's been more than 15,000 suspected cases of Mpox in Africa this year, and 461 people have died, mainly in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's a shortage of vaccine, and the World Health Organization says the outbreak could spread. Women are receiving late breast cancer diagnosis and facing delayed treatment, and this is due to a shortage in specialist staff. Now, the scans used to detect cancer can only be carried out by people trained in breast imagery. It's thought the NHS workforce has reached critical levels, with job rates of up to 20% in the department.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you. Talks on a ceasefire in Gaza start today, but Hamas is accusing Israel of setting new conditions and say they won't take part. Let's bring in our international affairs editor, Dominic Wagcorn. He joins us now from Haifa in Israel. Dominic, I guess there's those talks. There's also the broader situation in the Middle East, and we've been saying it's felt like it's on a knife edge for a couple of weeks now. Has it felt like that to you?
Yeah, I mean, we said that often, haven't we, during this war, Wilf? But I think, yeah, it really is at the moment. I think that sort of assessment has never been truer, that characterisation, because there is the potential, there is the prospect of some kind of ceasefire. I don't think we've seen Western powers, regional powers, as invested as they are this week now to try and bring about a ceasefire. America, Egypt and Qatar have been leading the way, and they've convened these talks in Doha, the Qatari capital, and they say now is the time. There's no time for more delay. And the good news is that there's a huge sort of appetite for a ceasefire in Israel amongst the Israeli public, and reportedly from Israeli defence chiefs at the higher levels of the Israeli security defence echelons, as they're called. And I think the concern is, though, the bad news is that Hamas doesn't seem to trust Israel in its current negotiating position. What Hamas is saying is that Israel has shifted the goalposts at the last minute before these talks. And actually corroborating that, the senior Israeli negotiators seem to have handed the New York Times this week documents that do seem to show the Israeli Prime Minister has shifted position on a number of key points. So for now, Hamas is not actually taking part in these talks. They haven't begun yet. And I think the question is that posturing? Is it kind of brinkmanship to try and strengthen Hamas's position on the on the eve of these talks, or is it a serious sort of sticking point? I think most people expect Hamas to take part either directly in person or through Qatari negotiators as a kind of conduit. So, there's a huge amount at stake. It's not just the war in Gaza. It's also the fact that Iran and Hezbollah have directly linked the outcome of these talks to the possibility of them taking retaliatory action for the assassinations of two key Hamas and Hezbollah leaders 2 weeks ago. Israel's been on a knife edge, bracing itself for retaliation for those attacks over the last fortnight. The good news for them is that there is a possibility of that attack not taking place if these ceasefire talks are successful. But obviously, if they fail, then there's a double jeopardy of continuing carnage in Gaza, war that's killed more than 40,000 people. 15,000 of which are children, according to relief agencies, displaced people from more than 80% of the Gaza Strip. There's a possibility of that continuing, but also the possibility of this retaliatory action, which could be very punishing for Israel, but could also lead to a great escalation and a much wider war.
Dominic Wagcorn, as always, thanks so much. Switching focus now to Ukraine, and which has taken more land and prisoners as its cross-border offensive against Russia enters a second week. A senior Ukrainian commander says troops have pushed about a mile deeper into Russian territory. Well, the Kremlin has mobilized reserves and declared a lockdown in the regions of Kursk, Belgorod and Bryansk. Sky News travelled to Ukraine's border to meet with soldiers taking part in the invasion. Our Defence and Security editor, Deborah Haynes, also met with some of the hundreds of Russians taken prisoner during the assault.
Every military vehicle bearing this mark is part of Ukraine's mission inside Russia. At the border, we meet soldiers who've been on the operation from the start.
Oh, wow. So you got that from a soldier?
Yes. They show me a captured rifle.
Trophy. A trophy, wow, yeah.
And other souvenirs.
And they're running away, you say? They run away?
Yes, they're running away. Just drop everything and run away.
Yeah. So do you think you can go further into Russia?
Yes.
Vladimir Putin has ordered his forces to repel the invasion. But these troops haven't been deterred. as they head back into Russia's Kursk region. We follow as far as the crossing point. We're at the Ukrainian side of one of the crossing points just over there. That's the Russian checkpoint. You can see there are vehicles, Ukrainian vehicles. They've got the triangle of this operation moving across into the border. This was the place from where Ukraine launched its counteroffensive. But the troops standing guard here are on edge because there's still a risk from next door. It means we can't stay for long. We've been told that there's been a drone strike here recently and it's just not safe to wait around, so they've asked us to leave. With Russia just on the other side of that fence, this region of northeastern Ukraine has long been in range of its firepower. Driving away from the border, we pass the rubble of a recent strike. But also a lot of Ukrainian armour heading in the opposite direction to fight back. As well as seizing land, Ukraine has also taken hundreds of prisoners of war in the assault. Sky News was given access to a site where dozens have been held, many of them young conscripts. They're kept in small rooms in the cells along this corridor. We're not showing the Russian detainees in compliance with international law, but we did talk to some. They describe their shock at being captured. They say they're being well treated here inside Ukraine, but they hope that they can be swapped for Ukrainian prisoners of war so they can go home. One official says more than 200 detainees have passed through here since the assault began on the 6th of August.
If everything checks out, they are sent to detention camps. These camps house other prisoners of war, where they await exchange.
For those locked away on both sides, that day surely can't come soon enough. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, northeastern Ukraine.
Well, joining us now is Ukrainian MP for Kharkiv, Marina Metsen-Seva. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. I guess my first question is just your reaction there to Deborah Haynes's piece. Of course, you're more than well aware of what's been going on with your country's incursion into Russia, but pretty extraordinary to see that footage and see Deborah there having just spoken to some of the Russian captives.
Well, I will be very blunt, and I must mention that since the beginning of summer, Russia has launched more than 2,000 assaults of a different kind against the Sumy region, which is bordering with Kursk region, where Ukrainian brave army was forced to create sort of a buffer zone. So demilitarize this zone to make it safer. And I would like to also mention, according to what the correspondent said, we completely adhere to international humanitarian law. So according to what has been said yesterday at the meeting with ministers headed by President Zelensky, we are supplying those civilians who are remaining at the Kursk territory with food, medication, with everything which is needed, and of course, the corridors for evacuation to both Russia and Ukraine. Most importantly, to say that indeed yesterday our army has moved with several extra kilometers towards the depths of Russia, taking in captivity the around 100 prisoners of war. And this is very important, how we treat them with regards to international humanitarian law and how they're being mistreated on the Russian side. We do hope that the next swap will be organized very soon. And I have to mention that Russia is taking civilians as hostages, which is a complete nonsense. Of course, currently, and this night was not very peaceful at all for many regions. From the Kursk region, Russia tried to launch again drones and other things to target Ukraine. Well, we are observing, we hear the different, sides, but for sure, Ukraine is on the side of settling on the based on international law. And we see, and we've heard the soldiers said that Russian soldiers just ran away, leaving their guns and trying to save their lives.
And overall, Maria, has this last week and a half of the Ukrainian incursion into Russia made Ukrainians feel good, feel confident?
Well, in some regions, like for instance in Kharkiv region, it became more peaceful, I must say. Nevertheless, of course, shelling continue. We are now having a siren and alarm. So I must say this keeps the morale of the fact that Russian army is not the second bravest, largest, and most advanced in the world. This also sends a very clear message to all our allies in NATO, all our Western allies in G7, that we really need this long-range weaponry. So we would not be forced to create this buffer zones. We would just target those places from where Russian airplanes are starting their way, Russian missiles, etc., dealing only with military targets. Unlike Russia continues to target schools, medical facilities, other civilian spots in different regions of Ukraine. Therefore, we need long-range weaponry, and we hope this decision will arrive very soon.
I guess, obviously, you're aware that the UK is allowing its weapons that it's given Ukraine to be used onto Russian soil. Are they taking a lead in that regard, or is it still not enough? As you're saying, you want longer range options too.
We definitely want to thank the government, the people, the Parliament of UK, and the fact that you are paving the way. You're showing how it has to be done with no, dragging the lag in decisions. But of course, we need more of such also on the side of the US and other partners, because sometimes it's a collective decision to be made. Surely, every day of such a waiting for us means losses of life of military and civilians. And I think with this operation, with creating of this sort of buffer zone, we show the capacity, how specific we can be on the battlefield, and of course, how tactically we can create plans and fulfill them. And I think everyone who's observing that is absolutely fascinated. But yet again, thank you for this opportunity to raise the issue of the long range, and that we are really much looking forward for this decision to be made ASAP.
Maria Medson-Seva, thank you so much for joining us. To the United States now, and tackling the fentanyl drug crisis is an issue for November's election. Huntington, West Virginia has long earned the title of the overdose capital of America, the consequence of 81 million opioid painkillers pumped into the city's pharmacies over an 8-year period. The highly addictive pills turbocharged a cycle of addiction, one finally being broken by community effort. Sky's US correspondent Mark Stone has this report.
It is easy to come to a place like this and see just hopelessness, because there are pockets of it everywhere. In that sense, this could be one of so many American communities. But spend a little longer, looking a bit closer, and it turns out this particular place is bucking a grim trend.
I'm Brandon Christopher McMillan, and I've been now clean for 4 months.
I've been here in recovery for 7 months now.
And I've been in recovery for 64 days.
Huntington, West Virginia, lies on the Ohio River, at the point where 3 states meet. The overdose capital of America, at least that's what they used to call it, flooded by doctors with opioids, miracle painkillers which created communities of addicts. Well, now, all over town, there are recovery centres. Brandon Scarberry is the boss at Recovery Point, a place he knew long before he ran it.
You remember all this because you did it yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it like it was yesterday. There's no question about it.
With a capacity of 100, the centre is almost full, with young men like Brandon McMillan at the start of his journey to sobriety.
And what was it that made you decide, enough, I need to be here?
When you lose everything and you're completely at your rock bottom, you have nowhere to go, you lose all family, They all give up on you. And that's not what I want.
There is nothing sophisticated or clinical about this place. It's basic, grassroots, run by people who know what it's like to be addicted. It's free, but with reminders of the price of addiction.
We call it the death board, and a lot of times it hits home for a bunch of people because they come in, they know these people on the wall. They went to school with them, they were in prison with them, they were in jail with them.
You do recovery dynamics, which is...
Stephen is a little bit further along the path, and you can see it in his face.
What does this place mean for you?
It saved my life. I really believe that with all my heart. I actually worked in the coal mines, and the pill epidemic, where it was just a really big thing in the mines, giving coal miners the Oxycontins, and that's what led to really my addiction. And then it progressed once the pills were gone. It kind of changed on the streets, and heroin came around, and that's how I got pulled into doing drugs.
Painkillers, street drugs, crime, jail, repeat. Here, they're breaking that cycle by themselves. Overdoses are now counted by the week, not by the day. It's step by step, and they must do it from the beginning.
My name's Christina Sargent, and I have 5 years in recovery.
Because the unborn here are victims too.
When I would go through the physical withdrawal symptoms of not having heroin and fentanyl, he stopped moving completely.
And he stopped moving because he was in withdrawal as well?
Yes, he was in withdrawal. In my stomach.
Christina now works here, helping so many other mums.
Because I know there's mothers out there that are afraid to get help. You know, and not just mothers alone, but there's people out there walking the streets that don't even realize this is a treatment center.
The lesson for so many American communities is from those who know how hard it is to beat addiction, but how possible it is too. Mark Stone, Sky News in West Virginia.
Well, still to come here on The Breakfast Show, are social media companies doing enough to protect children from harmful content online? We'll hear from the father of Molly Russell, almost 7 years after his daughter's death. Plus, could this be Liverpool's year? Will it be Arsenal's or Manchester City going to make it 5 Premier League titles in a row? We'll ask Liverpool legend Sky Sports commentator Jamie Carragher about his predictions for the new season. That's after this short break.
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Well, the plan seems to be to head to the police station where the policeman who fired the shots was based.
And everything, his memories is all gone.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
We have to get Trump out of the White House.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly...
God love you.
And beyond the United States, I report from around the world.
This is a town that is effectively encircled by the Russians.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our planet.
I can hear now quite a few explosions in the distance here in Jerusalem.
What do you think of ISIS?
Everybody here, they know the truth of ISIS.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Show. In just a moment, we'll be speaking all things Premier League with Jamie Carragher. But first, a reminder of all the day's top headlines. Liz got those for us.
Thank you very much, Wilfred. So, students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland received their A-level results this morning. Good luck to everyone picking up their grades. And grades actually are expected to fall back down to pre-pandemic levels after a spike in A's and A-stars during the years in which results were based on teacher assessments instead of exams. Elsewhere, Ukraine says its forces are continuing their advance into Russia's Kursk region. President Zelensky claims his troops have gained between 1 or 2 kilometres in the last 24 hours, but Russia insists it has stopped Ukrainian troops from gaining further entry into their territory. And talks on a Gaza ceasefire deal resume in Qatar later today. Iranian officials in Iran say they will attack Israel directly if negotiations fail to reach an agreement.
Good news for football fans. The Premier League returns tomorrow following the summer break. It kicks off at Old Trafford, where Manchester United take on Fulham tomorrow evening, live on Sky Sports, no less. And we're joined by Liverpool legend and Sky Sports pundit Jamie Carragher to discuss the season ahead. Jamie, very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Morning.
So we've obviously had plenty of sport over the summer, including specifically in football in the Euros. I know you do a lot of work as well in the Champions League as well. Sky's got the Championship and the EFL, which has already kicked off. Stepping back, though, from all of it, is the Premier League the best football to watch in the world?
Yeah, certainly if you go and look back at last season, I think it was the most goals that we'd ever had in a season. I think the entertainment last season, what we provided on Sky Sports, was probably one of the best seasons that we've had since the Premier League started in the early 90s. But hopefully we'll have a similar sort of season. I'm looking at that Garnacho goal. That was goal of the season. So there's plenty of those moments right throughout the season, and hopefully we see a little bit more of that starting on Friday night.
Jamie, it's Leah here. Good morning. Good to see you. Do you think that dominance of Manchester City will continue? 4 Premier League titles in a row. Nobody else has done that. Will they continue and go for a 5th, do you think?
Unfortunately, yes. I think Arsenal will be the closest challengers, but Pep Guardiola, no matter what league he's in, more often than not, he wins the league title. And I think the only people to stop him, I think, was Jose Mourinho when he was at Real Madrid one season, and Jurgen Klopp a few seasons ago in the Premier League. So that shows how tough it is. It's been really tough for Arsenal and tough on them, really, how close they've come in the last couple of seasons. But I know myself from my own experience with my team, Liverpool, it's a very difficult nut to crack as Manchester City. So I think most neutrals would hope that there's a different winner, and I'd probably say the same, because you don't want the same team winning year after year. But you have to take your hat off to Manchester City. The job Pep Guardiola's done on the team that they've got, they're still the team to beat.
Is he comfortably the best manager in the world right now, perhaps of all time? And do you think it's possible England could pull him away from City or offer him to do both jobs at once? City probably would allow that so that they don't lose him.
Well, maybe they would. I've not thought about that one, but I'm not sure England would get him, really. I think the best managers in the world want to manage at club level because they're consistently involved at the biggest games, going for the Champions League. And I think managers like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, I think they want to be on a training ground every day and having that relationship with players. They don't want to wait to see players every 4 to 6 weeks. So I think it'd be difficult to see either of those two as the England manager. And as I've said before, I think the England manager should be English. But getting back to the Premier League, I think Manchester City, I think maybe the last season that they have Pep Guardiola, but I'd see him go on and take another job somewhere.
Jamie, you mentioned Jurgen Klopp there. We've now got Arne Slot at Liverpool. He has that unenviable job, doesn't he, replacing the irreplaceable. What do you think?
I don't think it's the impossible job. I mean, it was a great time for Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, but we didn't win everything. We were very successful at one stage under Jurgen Klopp. We did have every trophy, I think, that you can possibly win at Anfield. But, it wasn't a case that Liverpool won every year. Most times they were a very close second to Manchester City. So there is scope to improve in that area. They can improve, obviously, in the way that they play as well, slightly. maybe better defensively as well. That was something they want to improve. And certainly how many injuries they had last season. So, you know, there are areas for the manager to improve.
I'm a massive Arsenal fan, Jamie, and also a massive England fan. And my question to you is, which of those two teams is going to put me out of my misery first in terms of a major trophy, for which I'm talking Premier League, Champions League, World Cup or Euros?
Oh, it'll definitely be Arsenal. I think Arsenal are extremely close. I mean, England have gone close, of course, in the last few years. But what I see with Arsenal, I've said Manchester City, I feel, will win the league. But, I mean, it's a toss of a coin, I think. I think Arsenal are that good and that close. And the job Arteta's done on that team, what we're seeing here, it's been fantastic to watch over the last couple of years. And as I said, I think most neutrals would say, you know, they'd probably like to see Arsenal win it rather than Manchester City. You know, just gives us a different team doing it. And that man there, Mikel Arteta's done a fantastic job under, obviously, initially the tutelage of Pep Guardiola. So it shows the influence of Guardiola, not just on Manchester City.
Very quickly, Jamie, I just want to talk about the match that kicks things off tomorrow, Man United against Fulham. And Erik ten Hag, you know, hung on to his job after winning the FA Cup. What do you think the team has to do in this coming season, really, to get him out of that position in hot water?
They've got to start really well. I mean, it's obvious the hierarchy were looking for a different manager in the summer. They couldn't quite find one, so they went back to the manager that they had. And, you know, he's been allowed to make signings there, spend money, as he has done every summer. But, you know, that's the nature of being the manager of Manchester United. But I think he's well aware, and so will the players and everybody at the club, that pressure will intensify if they don't get off to a good start. Starting on Friday, a game against an opposition who beat them at Old Trafford last season. So they've got to be stronger at home, Manchester United, and make Old Trafford a fortress for them, because they lost too many games last season, certainly at home, and throughout the season. They lost 19 in all competitions, which is far too many for a club of, you know, the size and the stature of Man United.
What's your wild card prediction, Jamie, for the Premier League season? A team that's going to do really well against expectation, or the other way around, a team that will flop despite high expectations?
Well, I mean, Chelsea are a funny one. They should have high expectations, considering the fact that, you know, the money they spend, the amount of players they have, the squad they have. But I don't think anyone's backing them to do anything, really, because of, you know, it just feels like a little bit of a shambles at the club in terms of just a constant revolving door in terms of players coming in and out. So when you consider what they've spent, they should be someone we all look at and expect them to be challenging, you know, on every front. But I don't think anyone sees that. I can't see anybody having them in the top four predictions, maybe not even qualifying for Europe. So I think Chelsea is sort of will always be a story, considering, you know, the money that they've spent, but not for probably the right reasons.
And my final question, Jamie, is we just had tons of Olympians on since the Olympics, and one of the topics there is always how you deal with coming off the high of competing at the top level. And I just wondered, with you personally, whether being on the eve of a new season, you're very excited about it as the broadcaster that you now are with Sky Sports, and it's just a moment of pure elation, or whether it's still tinged with missing out on not being a competitor anymore.
Oh, no, them days are well gone for me. I'm absolutely fine. I'm really excited. Love the job that I do with Sky, and I can't wait to get going on Friday night and get the Premier League going. I mean, the summer was great in terms of the Euros, and the Olympics has just finished now, but, you know, Premier League football for me, you can't beat that. So, rearing to go on Friday, and as I said, the days of thinking I could still pull the boots on are long gone, and I'm delighted to be next to Mr. Neville in the studio and not playing on that pitch at Old Trafford.
Well, we've got Mr. Neville coming up next hour, so text us any really good questions to trip him up that we should throw him.
Well, ask him where he thinks Man United will finish, because every season, without fail, he thinks to be challenging, and it never seems to happen. So if he makes that same prediction again, that'll make me very confident that they'll have another very poor season.
Well, and we look forward to holding people to account on Sky News, so we'll definitely be doing that. Jamie, thanks so much for joining us.
Brilliant, thank you.
Jamie Carragher there. And as we said, Gary Neville will be joining us in about an hour's time, 9:30, to continue that build-up to the kick-off of the Premier League season tomorrow night.
You're very excited about.
I am a little bit excited about it.
And the good news that he thinks the only team that can beat City or put them off is Arsenal.
Not just that, he said it's a coin toss.
Wow.
50-50 chance. Not quite that. I mean, he didn't quite like that. But I think we've got a good chance. We had a good pre-season. They're incredible cities, so it's a bit difficult. As Darren does. Do you know what? We've Arsenal got a better chance.
Football.
No. They've got a better chance of Premier League than I had playing chess yesterday.
Fair enough. Okay. We'll let you have
Which is not. It's not great.
Obvious,
it's not great.
Because as our guest yesterday said, I had a 0%.
Yes, a 0% chance.
Which he quickly proved to be in a minute and 30 seconds.
Yes.
Anyway, to much more important news. Let's talk about NASA, because it's still not decided how to bring home 2 astronauts from the International Space Station. We've talked about this before, Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams. They arrived there in June and were only supposed to stay in space for 8 days, but the Boeing capsule suffered failures en route. They're stranded, and it could now be 8 months before they come back. Here's NASA yesterday.
It's really taken some time to work through this and getting experts together, because we don't have enough insight and data to make some sort of simple black and white calculation.
And we talked about this a bit earlier, and Darren's signing up.
I'm very enthusiastic.
Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, any of the above.
I would love to go to the International Space Station. It's amazing that actually it's brought the world together in terms of cooperation. Also that it's been constantly manned since 2000. But also the views. I mean, you've interviewed Tim Peake.
Tim Peake. And I'm going to name drop again now. I've also interviewed Sir David Attenborough, and I asked him about space exploration. And do you know what he said? He said, actually, there's so much to explore here on planet Earth. He's more focused on that than going to the International
That's a good pushback, I have to say.
So Darren.
What I will say, no disrespect to Tim Peake, but David Attenborough is a proper name drop.
I'm sorry. I do them now and again, but that's my...
No, I welcome it. I love a little name. Something you dropped over there?
These astronauts, though, they are going to be there for 8 months, which is quite a long time with lots of people they probably don't know. And let's be honest, but they have to drink their own wee.
Do they actually?
Well, as in,
and you want to go, you weirdo.
Not for 8 months. I don't go for 8 months. I'd be very happy with the 8 days.
Let's have a listen to Taylor Swift. She's back. Wembley tonight. It's the first shows since the cancellation of 3 of her shows in Austria over alleged plot by suspected terrorists to attack the venue. But the Met have said there's nothing to indicate that those events will impact the London shows. And great, of course, to see the live shows back up and running after that unfortunate story. What a tour. I mean, just endless. But without anyone seemingly sort of, oh, it's going on too long, or it's not getting full attendances.
Appetite.
It's just massive, massive appetite.
If anything, the opposite is in, I'm sure on the black market, tickets must be insane. But it's also, I mean, Taylor Swift, when you think about it, first of all, her concerts have led to mini earthquakes where she's performed. And second of all, the reason that transatlantic flights are really expensive this year is because so many Americans are coming to Europe to see her.
You know so much about Taylor Swift.
She's changing economies and she's creating earthquakes and singing. It's pretty impressive.
On that note, we will leave that story. We're going to take a very quick break. Very important story when we come back to talk about online safety. We'll be right back. The question, as we start, we're going to play whilst we interview, is...
White moves first, by the way.
Oh, you get to go first?
I mean, you can have the white pieces if you'd like.
Oh, I see. Is that a thing? Gosh, I don't know the details as well.
Yeah.
OK, well then...
Maybe we can...
Guess first. Stress, grandmasters first. So we'll keep chatting whilst we're playing. But is there even a chance that I can win this? I mean, my point on that is, if we talk about other football and the like, a professional player can miss a penalty and they can have a bad day at work and all of that. Is that something that could happen here, or are the chances... Oh gosh, it's not going well.
I mean, the chances are quite slim.
Less than 30 seconds.
Why? They're quite slim.
I feel like if chess grandmaster were to play a beginner or even amateur player, I mean, it's very likely that, the amateur would probably lose 100 times out 100 games. By the way, this is already checkmate.
Go on.
But
Go on.
It's already over. There you go.
I mean, I was being quite cheeky here. I would for a fairly dirty trap, but...
I mean, you did last 1 minute and 20 seconds, and you were working at the same time.
Yeah,
so
you were
I was
trying
quite
to get
impressed.
through those questions.
Yeah, I started playing when I was 6. My father taught me the game, and then, I went to my local school chess club, and I just got better.
And what does it mean to be a grandmaster, and what does it mean to you personally?
I think grandmaster is quite a huge achievement. It's quite a rare thing to achieve. Like, I think there's even a statistic that there are more billionaires in the world than chess grandmasters.
Wow.
So, you know, technically, I mean, there's about like 800 million people who play chess. So, you know, technically it could be said that, you know, being a chess grandmaster is harder than becoming a billionaire. I certainly look up to some of the past, some of the world champions from the past, especially Magnus Carlsen, who actually just so happened to sign this chessboard.
I saw, and that's the chessboard you used to play with me because you knew I was of similar quality. But you played with Rishi Sunak, is that right?
Well, I didn't exactly play him. I don't think he knows too much about how the pieces move, but he did seem fairly keen about chess. Yeah. And this is why actually the government did announce some funding for chess last year. Computers are already better than grandmasters.
They already are.
I mean, there's this thing called chess engines. And yeah, these things are very strong, incredibly strong. I think since from 1997, ever since they beat the former world champion Garry Kasparov.
You couldn't beat them with that great move you pulled on me?
No, definitely not.
Welcome back. New research from the Molly Rose Foundation has found that children are being put at risk by the failure of major social networks to detect and remove dangerous suicide and self-harm content. It comes as the foundation is urging the government to commit to the new Online Safety Act. Joining me now is Ian Russell, the chair of the foundation and the father of Molly Russell, the 14-year-old who tragically ended her life while suffering from depression and the negative effects of online content. Thank you so much for joining us, Ian. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Will.
So Molly died 7 years ago, and you've been working passionately and energetically with the Molly Rose Foundation ever since. In general, if we step back before we get to the data that we're going to talk about in a moment, have you found big social media companies wanting to engage, avoiding it a little bit, avoiding it entirely? What's been the sentiment overall?
I think that big picture question is at the heart of this issue because the big social media companies say things like they take the safety of their users really seriously. And yet we continue to find that the sort of content that Molly was viewing 7 years ago, in the last 6 months of her life that a coroner contributed in a more than minimal way to her death, the same sort of content is easily available online, easy to find. And what's more, the platform's algorithms also suggest that content. So once you've stumbled into that sort of topic, that sort of depressive content, in Molly's case, self-harm content, the algorithms will suggest ever more and more of it. And yet the platforms claim they put safety first and claim they're doing as much as they can about it. Nothing much has changed.
And today you're coming to us with new data that sort of backs up that conclusion.
Yeah, and this data, here's another example, this data is only available because of European regulation. There's a thing called the Digital Services Act, and that requires companies who operate in Europe to provide data about the decisions they make when moderation matters are considered. And in the 8 months between September of last year and April of this year, that data reveals 12 million moderation decisions in connection with suicide self-harm content. And what it reveals is that the decisions taken are disproportionate to the size of the platform. So if you look at a platform like Meta, which is a huge global platform, one of the biggest, it makes decisions on about, of the 12 million decisions in that period, 1% were taken by Meta, whereas a comparatively small, albeit a big global platform, but comparatively small platform like Pinterest took nearly 3/4 of those decisions, 74% of the decisions. So that seems to indicate that it is possible to do more to remove harmful content online, and yet platforms like Meta, like X, like Snapchat, like Facebook don't seem to be doing enough about it.
Ian, thanks so much for joining us. I just wonder your thoughts and reflections with all of this data. What conversations should be had at home between parent and child about social media use. I have 2 little ones at home, and the conversation I have, I suppose, is, you know, you wouldn't let someone in, a stranger in, to your front door, and that's something they understand at this stage. But as you get older, it gets harder to police, doesn't it?
It does get harder, but the fact that you're having conversations is the important bit. That's probably harder still when a child becomes a teenager. Going through those teenage years has always been a trial in some ways. You know, you grow up and you separate from your parents. But as a parent, I think the important thing is to try and keep an avenue of communication going between the generations. Try and encourage your children to talk to you. Have conversations about digital safety, digital well-being, digital health, if you like, and talk about the fact that the digital world is amazing. We live in a digital world and it provides amazing opportunities, but not everything is good. And when you find something that isn't good, you should talk to someone about it. You should report it if it's really seriously not good, and you should at least share those experiences. So if parents share their bad experiences with their children, I think that encourages the same sort of conversations, but originated from the child's point of view, and then learn together about digital technology. They're the best things that you can do to keep that conversation going.
It sounds like, from what you were saying earlier, that you don't think overall the social media platforms are doing enough, or perhaps not doing all that they could. So let's talk about the law and regulation. You mentioned the EU stuff, the online safety bill obviously here. Does it go far enough? Are there simple, clear, extra additions to it that you would like to see? What's your message to the government?
So the message to the government is the online safety bill, which took 5 years to get through Parliament, and Ofcom, as the regulator, are now consulting for about another couple of years. It's going to take a huge amount of time to have any teeth at all. In that time, things have moved on. And also, as we begin to answer the consultation process that Ofcom is going through, we see that there are things where the bill is weak or could be structured in a stronger way. What is vital is no time is lost by this government in making sure that the bill is strengthened where it needs to be strengthened. No time is lost because social media's been around for 2 decades. We've given the platforms a 2-decade head start, and they've proved that the era of self-regulation hasn't worked. As the Digital Services Act has revealed this data, other benefits come from regulation. And if the government looks at the Online Safety Act and strengthens it, so it, for example, cumulative harm, where posts maybe not so harmful on their own, but if the algorithms are suggesting them and the platform systems suggest more and more harm, if the government looks at the Safety Act and says it's going to be difficult to enforce that, then it needs to be strengthened. And this is an ongoing process. We've got to keep up with the pace of tech. It's not going to finish anytime soon.
I don't know if this sounds like a really silly question, but what was Molly like? And what do you think she would have felt about your campaigning?
Molly, her dad, so I would say, but Molly was one of the most adorable, lovely people I've ever met. She was one of the most caring people I've ever met. So in that sense, if she ever saw something was wrong and could be better or fixed, she always set about changing things for the better. So if Molly was here and she was aware of these problems, I'm sure she'd be campaigning just as hard to make the internet safer for all of us.
Gosh, I've got chills down my back. Thank you so much.
Well, I mean, I think if she were here, she would be saying, well done to you for trying to make a positive out of all this. Congrats for the work. Ian Russell, thanks so much for joining us. Very much appreciated. We're going to have a quick look at the weather now. And it will be wet and windy for many today, while Friday and the weekend look mostly fine. It's fairly mild, if windy now, with locally heavy rain across Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland, edging into northern England. But southern Britain is mainly fine, although rather grey near western coasts. That's your weather. It is, of course, A-level results day here in the UK, and hundreds of thousands of students receiving their A-level results, and we wish them the very best of luck. Let's get out to our North of England correspondent Charlotte Leeming is at Franklin Sixth Form College in Grimsby. What is the mood there? One of anticipation. Have we had results come through yet?
Not quite yet. Look at this queue, though. They are queuing. Hello, everyone. Give us a wave for Sky News. Looking a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous. What a day. Feeling all the feelings, as the young people say. They're not quite been released yet, but this is where they are going to go to next. Of course, find their name, get their envelopes, and then the reaction, of course, which we will hopefully get on camera in the next half an hour or so, whether that is joy, whether that is a bit of disappointment, but of course so many options are available to people these days, so if they don't quite get what they wanted, there are alternatives. We're going to make our way over here. You can see lots of support services are here, lots of people from universities, for those people who are going to go through clearing who may not quite have got what they needed. Philip is here from a local uni. Philip, what advice for those people who haven't quite got what they wanted?
Well, what I would say is, first of all, do not panic. There are loads of options available. So universities like ourselves at Bishop Cross Test University are on hand today. We've got loads of people on the phone, we've got people in person at colleges ready to talk through options. No matter what grade people got, there's something else.
There is hope. There is not the end of the world. The queue is getting massive here. Just going to show you the nice thing. Of course, it's all about the Instagram now for the young people. So just behind here, sorry, ladies and gents, we're just going to show you this class of 24. You can get a photo to remember today. Let's hope it's good news for most people.
Oh, Charlotte, great stuff. We're going to be back there with Charlotte as results do start to cross. The very brave students that are willing to show that moment of camera. We talked about this earlier.
People are still turning up.
Turning up, not just the email.
Yeah.
Anyway, good luck to everyone. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll have all the top stories in just a couple of minutes. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. It's A-level results day for hundreds of thousands of teenagers across the country.
This morning we'll hear from them students and teachers, as well as getting their grades live on air in the next few minutes.
Plus, we'll be joined by Manchester United legend Gary Neville to talk results day and the return of the Premier League.
It is Thursday, the 15th of August. Your headlines.
We're here in St Mark's Academy in South London, where students have arrived to open their A-level results.
We're here in Grimsby. There is a massive queue of students waiting to open their envelopes in front of everybody. We hope we are going to see lots of celebrations a bit later on.
Well, a nervous morning, of course, for many teenagers waiting for those results, and for universities too, as student numbers and budgets are squeezed.
As Ukraine says it's pushing deeper into Russia, soldiers on the operation show us a captured rifle, even Russian rubles.
Plus, we've got a special report from America's opioids capital, where former addicts are helping people to get clean.
I know there's mothers out there that are afraid to get help, you know. And not just mothers alone, but there's people out there walking the streets.
And how an 8-day trip to the International Space Station for 2 astronauts might turn into 8 months. Plus,
I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake it off, shake it off.
Taylor Swift returns to the UK for her first live shows since her foiled terror plot. A very good morning to you. The envelopes have been sealed. The emails sent. Hundreds of thousands of teenagers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland get their A-level results this morning. We wish all of them the very best of luck, of course. Let's get out to Sadia Chowdhury, who's in St Mark's Academy in South London, to Charlotte Leeming, who's in Franklin Sixth Form College in Grimsby, Daniel Henry, who's at the University and College Admission Service in Cheltenham. Darren's here as well to discuss the political implications. Sadia, to you first. So many students on tenterhooks.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm feeling nervous. Maybe it's because it's so silent here as we wait for these 3 very bold students who have agreed to open their envelopes here live on Sky News. Guys, how are you feeling? Excited. OK, we'll go for it. I don't want to hold you. And here we go, the brown envelopes being opened for A-level results, which are coming out today. And we've got Maria here opening hers live, as well as Ozan and Nava. And here we go.
Okay.
What did you get?
A-star AA.
Oh, congratulations. Those are incredible results. What about you guys?
Good, good. D-star, D, distinction, and A.
A-star, AB. A-star, AB. Amazing. That's brilliant. So let's just hear yours again.
A-star AA in psychology, history, and maths.
Brilliant. And is that what you wanted?
Yes, this is what I wanted.
And
A-star AB for maths, physics, and chemistry.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. Congratulations. And Ozan?
Distinction star in IT, distinction in business, and an A in maths.
Amazing. And so does that mean you're getting into the universities of your choices? What are you looking to do next?
Apprenticeship. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. And what about yourself?
University.
University. And does that take you into the university of your choice?
Yeah.
Oh, well done. Brilliant. And what about you, Ozan?
I'm aiming to get into Surrey to do computer science.
Oh, well, congratulations to you all. I know your families are here waiting to speak to you, so I'll let you go off and celebrate with them. Thank you so much. Well, there are about 50 students who are opening their results here in St Mark's Academy this morning, and as you can see, the first lot have gotten away to a great start so far.
They certainly have. Sadia, thank you so much. Congratulations to them. And let's get now to Charlotte. Charlotte, I hope we're seeing as positive a set of results where you are too. Oh, I think we've lost the connection with Charlotte. We'll get out to her in a moment. Let's go to Daniel Henry. As we said, he's at UCAS, and it's going to be a very busy day there. Daniel, particularly for some of those students that don't quite get the results that they wanted, as we just saw with Sadia.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, that's right. It will be a busy day for people at UCAS and people who are getting their grades today who maybe have not got what they were hoping for. And if that's the case for you, I suppose that you have to take on the Taylor Swift and shake it off, because this is the place that you'll go to if you need some help. You can have a look behind me. If I step out of the shot, you'll see the people on the phones in touch with people already who are making their phone calls to get in touch with UCAS and say, look, I haven't quite got the grades I wanted, or I want to change my mind. And the people that you can see behind me there on the phone calls already, in touch with those people, are helping them to matchmake their place with the course of their dreams and hope to progress their higher education journey so they can keep studying and get to the university that they're hoping for. There are around 30,000 places available, around 30,000 courses, should I say, available for people to choose from. And there's a big increase in the number of people from underrepresented backgrounds, disadvantaged backgrounds that are getting into university now. So, as I said earlier, if you are struggling, if you haven't quite got the grades you're hoping for, UCAS are here to help you, and they'll match you up with a course if that's what you're looking to do next.
Daniel, Henry, great stuff. Thanks so much. We are able to rejoin Charlotte now, back and connected with her. Charlotte, people been opening those envelopes?
They have, it's just an absolute, oh, there's a shout over there, I hope it's good news, a real roller coaster of emotions. My A-level results were 30 years ago and I still remember that feeling, but we've got a real success story over here. This is Frank from Franklin College. So Frank, what did you get? How did you do?
I got 3 A's and an A star.
Not bad at all. So what subjects, Frank?
I did maths, further maths, physics and computer science.
So easy ones then.
Yeah.
Mum, come over here, stop standing there. How proud are you?
Yeah, mega proud.
What was it like? How much work did he put in? I mean, they take some serious revision, don't they?
He's worked really, really, really hard. Yeah. Totally deserves it.
So what next for you, Frank? Where are you going to go to? Uni?
I'm off to Sheffield University.
And what are you going to do? What course?
Studying artificial intelligence.
Fantastic. So a brilliant success story there for Frank. And a lot of people will get university places this year. There's a lot of availability. But of course, there are those people who won't do done quite as well. And then they have to go to clearing. We've got Philip over here who is coming to meet us. Philip, we've just heard from Frank, who did brilliant in his A-level. There will be people who are worried they didn't quite get what they wanted. We've seen a few tears today. What opportunities are there for them?
Well, there are loads of opportunities. So what I would say is do not panic. Clearing is open, so universities are on the phones waiting to hear from people who may have not got the grades that they expected, or if their circumstances have changed. Like ourselves at Bishop Grosseteste University, we're here to help.
And we know, Philip, it's not the end of the world. We promise you, if you didn't get the results you quite wanted, you know, there are lots of opportunities and different ways you can get to the future that you want. But today, that clearing service is open right up until October. We've got to show you this, a bit different to my day. I think we just went to the pub after our results, but it's all about the social media, isn't it? So later on, we'll get you some lovely pictures of the students celebrating and capturing this moment forever on social media. Back to you.
Charlotte, you went straight to the pub after getting your results at 9 a.m. 30 years ago?
Did I just say that out loud? No, I think it was about 3 o'clock. It's happy hour somewhere, isn't it?
Exactly. And you're mentioning your results 30 years. You also did double maths, physics and computer science.
Of course. No, I did English, psychology and sociology. And look at me now on Sky News.
Yeah, still pretty darn good. But I will say Frank's set of subjects there, and off to study AI.
Oh,
He's going to put us all out of work.
Yeah, hopefully he might be able to pull the plug in 40 years' time when it takes over.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think he'll be smart enough to do that. Well, congratulations to him and those other students. And again, best of luck to all those still to open those envelopes. And, of course, it's not the be-all and end-all either way. Darren, we also were discussing, of course, results day, but more broadly, the university picture going forward with the Education Secretary earlier. What stood out for you?
Yeah, really interesting this, because the education sector, and particularly universities, aren't necessarily in a very good state, financially at least. You know, Britain should be very proud of the fact it's got some of the world's best universities. They massively add to the UK economy every year, but lots of them are also in financial trouble. And that's because, frankly, tuition fees have not increased by nearly as much as inflation in the last 10 years, which means that they have to make up that deficit. And also they become increasingly reliant on international students who pay a hell of a lot more in tuition fees. And tuition fees, by the way, are the biggest way that universities essentially find their funding, aside from research and everything else they do. And so this big dilemma now for the government is, how do they plug that funding gap? Does it come from us as taxpayers? Is that palatable to people who didn't go to university? Or does the burden need to fall back on students again? And frankly, when you were speaking to Bridget Phillipson earlier on, there was a recognition of this problem, but actually no obvious answer. Let's have a listen in.
I do recognise the challenge, and I hear that message from institutions as well, but I think that's a really unpalatable thing to be considering, not least because I know that lots of students across the country are already facing big challenges around the cost of living, housing costs. Lots of students I speak to who are already working, lots of jobs, extra hours in order to pay for their studies. So I do want to ensure that we reform the system overall. I've been looking at what the options around that will be, and I hope at a later stage to be able to say more about that.
So this also, in many ways, bleeds into another debate, which is one that we've been having quite recently about migration, because visas have taken up a large pie of the migration numbers in recent years. Lots of people actually have suggested in the past the student numbers should be taken out of the migration figures, but they have. And we do think the visa changes introduced by the last government, the Conservatives, the last couple of months, will make a change to the number of foreign students arriving, which will make a difference to the migration numbers, but again make the difference to funding for universities. Some good news today for the government, though. The number of kids going from diverse backgrounds and disadvantaged backgrounds has improved again this year, which is clearly good news. And I've also just been reading from UCAS the top 3 subjects with the largest increase. They're pretty strong subjects, I suggest. They are engineering and technology, architecture, building and planning, and law. Pretty solid subjects.
Engineering technology is the top subject.
Engineering technology is the biggest increase. Yeah, which is quite important, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure, very important. It goes back to Frank, I think was the student's name, doing those sorts of topics today is the way to go. It's just, I just refer as well, people should check out Paul Kelso's analysis piece online. It's got so many great statistics in it. And the one that did really strike me is 26% of population is from foreign students, but they contribute 46% of total tuition fees. And that's really, at the heart of this debate that we just had with Bridget Phillipson. But quite striking figures, that.
It is a massively striking figure, not least of all because that number is possibly going to get squeezed in the years ahead, and that's the big question. And Bridget Phillipson was very keen to tell you this morning, these places are not coming at the cost of domestic students, but there have been this new kind of bloodstream of funding for universities, and if fewer people are going to come here, fewer students are coming here, which maybe many viewers watching want to happen, where are universities going to get that from? It may have to come from the general taxpayer, but as the government will tell you, there's not that much money left.
Well, listen, as we've been saying throughout the day, today is much more about the students, and congratulations to all of them. And we're just going to relive the moment where Maria was opening her letter to get her grades.
Here we go.
Okay.
What did you get?
A-star AA.
Oh, congratulations. Those are incredible results. What about you guys?
Good. D-star, D, distinction, and A.
A-star, AB.
A-star, AB. Amazing. That's brilliant. So let's just say here.
Congratulations to all of them and to everyone across the country. I have to say, I was a bag of nerves watching that when we did that.
I could not do that in front of cameras.
I still am, even replaying
else.
it when I know that they did well.
Yeah. I think we were more nervous almost than they were. But I mean, that is brave, opening up on national TV.
Seriously is, and again, congrats to everyone with their results. All the day's other stories now. Liz got those.
Thank you, Wilfred. We're going to start on the economy. The economy grew, didn't it, by 0.6% in the last quarter, and this was led by the service sector, but there was no growth at all. In monthly stats in June, the ONS says businesses delayed purchases until after the general election. Well, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, welcomed the growth across the 3 months, but said more work is needed to repair the previous Conservative government's handling of the nation's finances.
The economic facts are clear. Because we have the highest debt burden that we've had for over 60 years, and we're having to spend billions and billions of pounds on debt interest to pay that off every month, and because working people have got the highest tax burden since the 1940s, people at home know, and anyone can look at the statistics, that what we inherited from the Conservatives was the worst fiscal inheritance since the Second World War. And that means we've got very challenging economic circumstances. We welcome growth in the economy, and growth is our first and most important mission here at the Treasury, but we've got much, much more work to do to recover from the mess that we were left with.
The police watchdog has told the Metropolitan Police Force it's failing or needs to improve in 7 of 8 areas of service and is not managing the risk posed by sex offenders effectively. The Police Inspectorate report says the largest force is particularly bad at investigating crime and managing offenders and suspects. Its performance update calls for the Met to immediately review its day-to-day management of teams dealing with sex offenders. The World Health Organization has declared Mpox outbreaks in Africa as a global health emergency. There's been more than 15,000 suspected cases of Mpox in Africa this year, and 461 people have died, mainly in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's a shortage of vaccine, and the World Health Organization says the outbreak, well, it could spread. New research from the Molly Rose Foundation has found that children are being put at risk by the failure of major social networks to detect and remove dangerous suicide and self-harm content. It comes as the foundation is urging the government to commit to the new Online Safety Act. Well, speaking to us a little earlier, Ian Russell, whose daughter Molly ended her life while suffering from depression and the negative effects of online content, said that a lot more work is needed to be done as little has changed since her death.
The sort of content that Molly was viewing 7 years ago, in the last 6 months of her life that a coroner concluded contributed in a more than minimal way to her death, the same sort of content is easily available online, easy to find. And what's more, the platform's algorithms also suggest that content. So once you've stumbled into that sort of topic, that sort of depressive content, in Molly's case, self-harm content, the algorithms will suggest ever more and more of it. And yet the platforms claim they put safety first and claim they're doing as much as they can about it. Nothing much has changed.
And finally, women are receiving late breast cancer diagnosis and facing delayed treatment, and this is due to a shortage in specialist staff. Now, the scans used to detect cancer, well, they can only be carried out by people trained in breast imagery, and it's thought the NHS workforce has reached critical levels with job rates of up to 20% in the department.
Yeah, great stuff, thank you. Well, let's move on to Ukraine now. And they've taken more land and prisoners as its cross-border offensive against Russia enters a second week. A senior Ukrainian commander says troops have pushed about a mile deeper into Russian territory. The Kremlin has mobilised reserves and declared a lockdown in the regions of Kursk, Belgorod and Bryansk. Sky News travelled to Ukraine's border to meet with soldiers taking part in the invasion. Our Defence and Security editor, Deborah Haynes, also met with some of the hundreds of Russians taken prisoner during the assault.
Every military vehicle bearing this mark is part of Ukraine's mission inside Russia. At the border, we meet soldiers who've been on the operation from the start.
Oh, wow. So, what, you got that from a soldier?
Yes. They show me a captured rifle.
Trophy. A trophy, wow, yeah.
And other souvenirs.
And they're running away, you say? They run away?
Yes, they're running away. Just drop everything and run away.
Yeah. So do you think you can go further into Russia?
Yes.
Vladimir Putin has ordered his forces to repel the invasion. But these troops haven't been deterred as they head back into Russia's Kursk region. We follow as far as the crossing point.
We're at the Ukrainian side of one of the crossing points just over there. That's the Russian checkpoint. You can see there are vehicles, Ukrainian vehicles. They've got the triangle of this operation moving across into the border. This was the place from where Ukraine launched its counter-offensive.
But the troops standing guard here are on edge because there's still a risk from next door. It means we can't stay for long.
We've been told that there's been a drone strike here recently and it's just not safe to wait around, so they've asked us to leave.
With Russia just on the other side of that fence, this region of northeastern Ukraine has long been in range of its firepower. Driving away from the border, we pass the rubble of a recent strike. But also a lot of Ukrainian armour heading in the opposite direction to fight back. As well as seizing land, Ukraine has also taken hundreds of prisoners of war in the assault. Sky News was given access to a site where dozens have been held, many of them young conscripts. They're kept in small rooms in the cells along this corridor. We're not showing the Russian detainees in compliance with international law, but we did talk to some.
They describe their shock at being captured. They say they're being well treated here inside Ukraine, but they hope that they can be swapped for Ukrainian prisoners of war so they can go home.
One official says more than 200 detainees have passed through here since the assault began on the 6th of August.
If everything checks out, they are sent to detention camps. These camps house other prisoners of war, where they await exchange.
For those locked away on both sides, that day surely can't come soon enough. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, northeastern Ukraine.
And more of Deborah's analysis online on the Sky News website. We've got much more. Still to come here on The Breakfast Show. How many students have bagged themselves the top grades that they want? We'll find out. Plus, we'll meet the blind lawyer and his boss taking part in the 24 Peaks in 24 Hours challenge to raise money for people living with sight loss.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Well, the plan seems to be to head to the police station where the policeman who fired the shots was based.
And everything, his memories is all gone.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
We have to get Trump out of the White House.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly...
God love you.
And beyond the United States, I report from around the world.
This is a town that is effectively encircled by the Russians.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our planet.
I can hear now quite a few explosions in the distance here in Jerusalem.
What do you think of ISIS?
Everybody here, they know the truth of ISIS.
Welcome back. Blind London lawyer Michael Smith and his sighted boss Jack Stacey are training to climb 24 mountains in 24 hours to raise money and awareness for seeability. They'll be tied together the whole way so Jack can guide Michael, and they both join us now. A very good morning to you, Michael and Jack. Thanks so much for joining us. So Michael, tell us the challenge you're doing, and it's pretty soon. You're going in the start of September.
Absolutely. It's 3 weeks away. It's 24 peaks in 24 hours. Due to my visual impairment, Jack will be leading me all the way.
And obviously 24 peaks in 24 hours. It sounds remarkable challenge, even if you were fully sighted on your own. I mean, are you in the midst of very fierce training at the moment?
Yeah, we're training 5 or 6 times a week, lots of gym sessions. Communication is going to be the hardest and most intrinsic aspect to this challenge. So Jack and I work extremely closely together, and we're doing lots of exercises in our communication.
And Jack, talk to me about why you've got to this point to do this with Michael, who obviously works with you. I mean, what drove you to want to kind of do this particular challenge and do anything at all, really, in this area to raise money for seeability?
Sure. It's a really big year this year because in September it'll be the end of my first year as chairman of seeability. It's also the charity's 225th year anniversary. So I wanted to do something really big challenge to raise awareness, but most importantly, raise as much money as possible. And I think we've seen lots of personal challenges that people do. I wanted to do something that would more align closely with the values of the charity. So challenging society's expectations of what they think is possible, but also even people's own expectations of what they can do. So I thought I would do something where I could support someone do something that they really wanted to do, rather than just me on my own. So I asked Michael if he was interested. Michael's also a trustee of the charity, and we work together separately. And I gave him a list of options, list of ideas of things that we could do. Michael went straight to the bottom of the list, picked the one marked extreme, and here we are.
You know, Michael, not everyone has this close relationship with their boss. I mean, there might be some people out there.
But I thought they might be watching it.
that do everything they can to avoid them. But clearly you really get on. I'm not saying he.
It was a very formal relationship to begin with. And then
still is.
Yeah, still is, absolutely. There's still a lot of respect there. But I became very aware of the fact that seeability assists Jack's family to this day with Jack's brother. And charities like seeability were so instrumental in my recovery post-sight loss. So it was really important to me, and I thought it would be fantastic to do it together.
And tell me a bit about your sight loss. When did that start to be an issue for you?
Yeah, it happened at the age of 19, out the blue. I was studying for a medical degree at Barts and the London Medical School. And it became very apparent very quickly that I wouldn't be able to continue. So it was a huge change to my life. So technology is a great enabler now, though. It's an amazing time from the technological developments on a day-to-day basis that allow me to operate very independently. And I think that's the real ethos of the charity. Ambitious fulfilment constantly. So people who have really sort of devastating things that happen to them initially can really recover through sport and employment.
Jack, I presume you know, maybe not the precise statistics, but the gist of this, of the percentage of people that have sight issues or full blindness. What portion are people that have had sight at some point, and how does that change how they process it and deal with it?
Yeah, look, it's a massive challenge, and it's something at seeability we're drawing a lot of awareness to. Particularly, there's a huge statistic around people with learning disabilities. You can be 10 times more likely to also have sight loss, but it's extremely hard to diagnose because of the learning disability that might be there alongside. So a lot of work we do around sight care, advocacy, lobbying to bring awareness to that issue. And if we can do one thing with this challenge, it would be to bring more awareness. I mean, I'm lucky enough with my colleagues at work to see Michael day in, day out, navigating a fully sighted world in such an extremely good way. This is hopefully bringing a bit more attention to what other people might be able to achieve.
Guys, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
7th of September, countdown is on. Don't get injured, keep training well.
Thank you.
And come back and join us afterwards.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Jack and Michael, thanks so much. Well, we're going to go to break now. As we mentioned earlier today, it's the first night of Taylor Swift's return to the UK for her tour since she had some of those nights cancelled in Austria. Let's go to break with a bit of Toe Swift. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Shake, 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 shake. Shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, 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 break. And the baker's gonna bake, 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 bake.
Welcome back. Teenagers across England, Wales and Northern Ireland have been getting their A-level results this morning. Well, in a moment, we'll speak to football legend and Sky Sports commentator Gary Neville for his take on the results and to the other options available to young people if they don't quite get the results they wanted for a university place. But first, let's get the national picture of the results from Paul Kelso. He's at Coventry University. Good morning, Paul.
Yeah, morning. This is the frontline clearing room, as they call it, at Coventry University. They've got about 1,500 places to fill. These people are taking calls from students who've got their results this morning. And the news is good. In England, Wales and Northern Ireland, students have done well. Pass rates are about the same as they were last year. The top lines I'll give you quickly. A stars, 9.3% of students. That's a little bit up. A and A star pass rates at 28%. That's about the same again. And A to E, 97% of students getting those pass rates. So good news for A levels. Vocational training qualifications, that includes BTECs and T levels. 9% of the 250,000 people who've taken those have achieved the top grade there. So good news for vocational training as well. A quick word on the picture for universities nationally, like this one. There's a lot of concern about whether they'll fill their places, whether the student cohort is out there to help keep the funding going for these institutions. Well, the news, again, encouraging from the university sector. A 3% increase in the number of applicants this year. 425,000 young people have applied for university. 82% have got their first choice. And the number of international students who are absolutely crucial to funding the university sector, well, that's flat as well, and that is better than many feared. Changes to visa rules, some concern that universities wouldn't fill those places. One final line, a record number of kids from disadvantaged backgrounds have achieved places. So the picture is good. The picture is steady year on year. This is the first year that grades have been equalised back to pre-COVID levels, and these figures are all up on 2019, the last year when the kids who did their exams this year were facing the same conditions as those who didn't have to go through COVID.
Paul Kelso, great stuff. Thanks so much for that overall picture across the country on Results Day. Let's bring in now former Manchester United and England legend and Sky Sports commentator Gary Neville, who's also co-founder of University Academy 92. Gary, very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
That's great to be here. Thank you.
We want to talk about University Academy 92 in just a moment, but first, we've spoken a lot so far, and we've had some kids open their results live on air, which is pretty brave, and thankfully for them, their results were positive. Obviously, up and down the country, there will be some who don't quite get the grades that they wanted, and as someone who's had a lot of ups and downs in their careers, what's your advice to people when you're in one of those moments that it's not quite the result that you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, there's no sort of point trying to dress it up. It's a huge disappointment, obviously, for those students. And, you know, I always think of it as being they've put the past 13 years of their life into education. And then obviously on the sort of final day before they go into higher education, they have this disappointment. But what we do here at UA 92 is try and sort of give them examples of students who've been sort of had similar disappointments and that they've actually recovered from it through doing maybe a pathway course that gets them back on track. You can recover from it. There is no doubt about that. It is a disappointment. It's a disappointment not just for the actual student, but then they sometimes feel that the pressure of sort of letting down sort of the parents who obviously are there and wanting them to do well as well. So it is a difficult moment. That is a challenge, but they just need support from their family, their friends, and more importantly, from the higher education sort of institutions that they're looking to go to as well.
And do you think this moment in time, whether it's the university place specifically or the exam results specifically, is the be-all and end-all?
No, it's not the be-all and end-all. I mean, at UA 92, we actually give 80% of our sort of credits in your degree for your course, your subject that you do. And we give 20% actually for your personal development journey and character and personality, we feel is the most important thing. One thing's absolutely for certain, and being an employer, I understand this, that when you meet people in a job interview, of course you look at the CV, but your CV just gets you through the door. It's the character and personality, honesty, authenticity of the individual that you buy into. So we really feel as though it's important that you develop that, and that's why this university is quite different. And I think bucking the trend at the moment in terms of sort of the results, we're 50% up in our student intake from last year to this year, which is just incredible for a brand new sort of university like us.
Gary, it's Leah here. Great to see you. I have to say, my dad would be so proud that I'm talking to you today. He's the biggest Man United fan. Got to talk about the Premier League. It's kicking off on Friday, Man United against Fulham. Just your thoughts looking ahead, because Wes Brown has said he actually thinks Arsenal are going to lift the trophy this year. Wilfred would be very happy with that. But your old mate, Jamie Carragher, reckons it's Man City. What's your verdict?
I think Arsenal, I mean, I went Arsenal last year. I think that they're on that sort of, if you like, upward trajectory, and I think they're getting better every single year. Obviously, they're up against one of the great sides that this league has ever produced in Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, so it's always going to be tough. But I feel like they've got stability with the manager, they've got stability in the team, they're getting better. So I think I'm going to say it again, you can't write off Manchester City, of course you can't, but I'm going to say Arsenal again for this season, just because I feel like they're getting they were so close last year. I feel like they might be able to go that extra step this time.
Oh,
do you know what? I'm beaming. We had Jamie on earlier, Carragher, and he said it's 50-50 toss-up, and you're saying it's Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I can't say that that you know, I'm supported at Manchester United as well. In fact, you brought great misery to me as a fan through many years. But nonetheless, I do still think it's great privilege to have you on. My question, I'll bring it on to Manchester United. Do you think ETH will be the manager at the end of the season?
Look, I hope so. I mean, there's no doubt if he has a really poor start and the results are the same as last year, that he'll come under massive pressure very quickly. But I'm actually quietly optimistic about Manchester United. I just think that the signings that they're bringing in are of a different profile than they have in the past, and they won't make, you know, the group of people now are at the club, from owner down to sporting director, technical director, CEO, will not make the same mistakes that Manchester United have made in the last 3 or 4 seasons, where they have wasted money. And they've made signs that you knew at the time were going to bring pressure to them at some point. I think the profile of the players that they're bringing in is the right profile. They need a younger, quicker, more athletic, energetic football team. And I think that's what you're going to see from Manchester United this year. There's still an imbalance in some parts of the team that need to get better. Worries about, obviously, Luke Shaw, who's now injured at left-back, and who's going to play there. Potentially up front, if Højlund does continue with his injury. Obviously, you know, United are short up there. But just generally, I think that they're in a better situation than they were last year, and hopefully the change at the very top of the club, which I think everybody's wanted for years, and with Ineos coming in now, will bring sort of more sensible decision making. I think is the best way to put it.
Gary, I'm going to indulge you now before you go. Do you miss the game? Because when you came into Old Trafford, you know, you had the likes of Eric Cantona, Andre Kanchelskis, Ryan Giggs. You must have looked around and thought, wow, I'm part of something really special here.
Yeah, look, I was privileged to be part of that for 20 years, and it was mesmerising, the journey that I went on, particularly being a United fan growing up in the area. But I'm not one that sits back. I've actually joined Sky, I think 13, 14 years ago, and I actually love every single year that I cover the games. I'm excited about going to Old Trafford tomorrow night. And not just that, I'm excited about going to Stamford Bridge on Sunday and watching Chelsea and City. You know, I really love going to the football and watching it, and that feeling of a Premier League game in the start of the season is exciting. So I don't look back upon my career and think, oh, I wish I was still doing that. There are moments where I miss the changing room, the camaraderie, but I get that in other parts of my life now with the team that we have on the football side at Sky and in other parts of my life. So I feel very lucky to have been where I've been, but very lucky still to be doing what I'm doing now, which is obviously covering the game still.
Well, and at Sky, I know you get the camaraderie, and I know also from your colleagues across both sports and news, you get pushed and challenged from time to time, as we can relive in a moment just now from the election preview with Kay.
Yeah.
Time for election time, I think you're fine. You can both... This is my studio.
We're gone as well.
Gone.
Oh, God.
See ya.
You're fired. Oh,
I'm not joking.
Oh. I've always wanted to take you on live, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all mouth.
Honestly, this tease for the election, I've rewatched many times. I thought Kay absolutely nailed it. Of course, you two did as well. But the big question I have is, when is Kay Burley versus Gary Neville the interview? Because you both teased it there, and I think it'll be one of the hardest challenges you've ever faced, Gary.
Yeah, we need to see that, don't we? Because she does give it some, doesn't she? She's on there every single day. She's pushing people. She's provocative. And I think that, yeah, she should get me and Cara on and sort of go for it with us, and we'll hopefully give as good as we get. I'm sure she'll be tough with us.
I think it'll be up there with Frost Nixon, Burley Neville. I look forward to it. Final question, Gary. I mean, any advice to students out there? Are there places available at UA92? What would you be saying to them?
Yeah, do you know something? What I always say to students that are going to potentially choose any university, and I speak to a lot of students on the way in, over the last few months, it's part of what I do here. I always say to them, go and experience the university, go and actually go to the university, go to the open day, speak to the people that you're going to be with, go and see the environment that you're going to be in for 3 years, and take your time to make the decision. So whatever happens today, it's great for those students that have got the right results, they've got the first choice, they know where they're going. If everyone's in that position, great, but we know they're not. Some people this morning are in a little bit of a flux, they're in a little bit of a panic. Take your time. There is no point in rushing things this morning. Take your time over a few days, speak to people, go and visit different universities, reflect upon what's happened. And there is a time scale you've got to be able to work in, but honestly, I wouldn't panic this morning. That's the main thing, if it hasn't quite gone your way.
Gary, great stuff. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll all be tuning in. 8 p.m, the Premier League kicks off on Sky Sports tomorrow evening. Lots more still to come here on The Breakfast Show. We'll be live across the country once again as students get their A-level results. Don't go anywhere.
What kind of pollen gets up your nose? Sky News Pollen Reports, brought to you by the Kleenex Your Pollen Pal app.
Northern and western parts will be mostly wet this morning, while northern England and North Wales will see rain taking over. Elsewhere, the Midlands, southwest will cloud up, while easternmost English counties will keep some sunny spells, while temperatures will be around the average, tempered by the stiff winds. Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland will see rain giving way to sunny spells and the odd shower later, while central and southwestern Britain will turn wet. Here's your pollen levels. It will be high in the dry southeast, falling to moderate, then lower in the north.
Sky News Pollen Reports, brought to you by the Kleenex Your Pollen Pal app.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Well, the plan seems to be to head to the police station where the policeman who fired the shots was based.
And everything, his memories is all gone.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
We have to get Trump out of the White House.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly...
God love you.
And beyond the United States, I report from around the world.
This is a town that is effectively encircled by the Russians.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our planet.
Yeah, I can hear now quite a few explosions in the distance here in Jerusalem.
What do you think of ISIS?
Everybody here, they know the truth of ISIS.
Traveling is not just about the destination. It's also about how you get there. Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Welcome back. Returning to results day now, and the proportion of A-level students awarded top grades is higher than last year and remains above pre-pandemic levels. Well, Sadia Chowdhury is at St Mark's Academy in South London and Charlotte Leeming's at Franklin College in Grimsby, and both have been watching results roll in as the mornings unfolded. We went to Sadia first last time. Charlotte, when we come to you first this time, what's the mood there? I mean, we saw some extraordinary results, I think, with someone called Frank you're speaking to. I guess there's also been some that might not quite have got what they wanted?
Yeah, also, you know, it's sad, isn't it, when you see people sort of really quickly leave the building because they haven't got what they wanted. We've seen some in tears and with the parents sort of just with their shoulders, with their hands around the shoulders. So some people are very upset. But, you know, there are options for them. It's not the end of the world. But a lot of people celebrating. You can see this fantastic social media friendly scene here, which, of course, class of 24, lots of success stories, as you said in the introduction. Especially with Eden. Eden, fantastic results from you.
Yeah.
Just tell us what you got, please.
I got 2 A's and a distinction star, so I'm really happy.
That is absolutely brilliant. And what subjects did you take, Eden?
Graphics, media and sociology.
So what do you want to go into? There was a whisper you want to go into this job.
Yeah, I like media a lot, but I want to do graphic design at uni, so...
Fantastic. So you're feeling good, aren't you?
Yeah.
And we know you've got your supporters over there. There's your mum, and she is absolutely beaming from ear to ear. We're going to have a quick word with her. Loads of people still getting the results, by the way. They must have been getting up late. Mother of Eden, how are you feeling?
I am so proud of her. The last 2 years, she has shown so much resilience and hard work and dedication, and it's all paid off.
Fantastic. So celebrations afoot later on. But not everyone, of course, is getting those results they wanted to, and it's not the end of the world, as I say. Loads of options, loads of opportunities, if you didn't quite get those grades. Let's have a quick word with someone alone. We've seen some people upset, they've not got what they quite wanted. What can they do about that?
So there are still lots of opportunities available at some really good universities. So my advice would be get on the phone, see where you can get a place, and then go and visit it. Because universities are running visits. So like at the University of Hull, you can come and visit the university every single day. So you can go and have a look around, see if it's actually a place where you might like to study. And then it can actually turn out to be a really good opportunity.
It feels like the end of the world, doesn't it, when you open it up and those grades are not what you want. But universities are desperate for students at the moment, aren't they? The financial difficulties, they really want people to go, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. And there's some amazing courses that you can go and study at university. So even if it might not be the plan that you originally thought of, actually there's still some brilliant opportunities. And we have loads of students where they might have gone through clearing, it might not have been their first choice, but actually they end up having the best time and end up in some really great graduate destinations. It just might have not been their plan A, but plan B can work really well too.
Zoe, fantastic advice, and we all know that feeling, don't we? You know, in my GCSEs, they weren't quite what I expected, and you think it is the end, you think your educational journey is over, but there are other ways that you can approach your next step in your career, and we're seeing some brilliant scenes here today. People are really happy, they worked hard, they've had a stressful summer thinking about today, and then open that email, that envelope, and they're going to uni, and they're very happy about it.
Charlotte, great stuff. Thanks so much in Grimsby. Let's get back to Sadia, who's at, I think, St Mark's College in London. And Sadia, we were watching live as you joined some of those students, an hour or so ago, as they opened. Honestly, it was unbelievably nerve-wracking for us watching. I'm sure for you being there, but even more so for them. How brave to do so live on camera.
Yeah, live on camera, and we've seen lots of other students come through here as well who are opening theirs, and it is just seeing the joy on their faces after they've opened their envelopes. I'm going to go over now and try and speak to some of these students. So we saw Maria, who opened her results live on air earlier with us. Maria, tell us a bit about what you're going to be doing next.
I'm doing an apprenticeship with BNP Paribas in compliance.
So that's really exciting, and you were telling me that you had just arrived at this school 3 years ago from Dubai. So what was that journey like for you to get to grips with a new educational system in just 3 years?
It was quite difficult. I had to work really hard, especially because I had to do 2 new subjects, which was history and English literature. But I did the work, I put the work in, and I got the results that I wanted in the end.
Well, excellent. Congratulations to you again. And I'm just going to go over now and speak to Sophia Young, who is probably mid-application. Sophia, if you can give us a few minutes to speak to. So you were telling me that you got grades. Let's hear your grades first, because these are excellent.
Yeah, I've got A star in maths, biology and chemistry, and A in Chinese.
So that's 3 A stars. Yeah. That's really incredible. And you're doing sort of like a reverse clearing, aren't you? You're going to try and get into a different university, even though the one you wanted has been accepted. So talk to me about that.
So at first I expect myself to get like 3 A's. So I was like going through like normal university like process. So I'm like looking for like Kingston. But now I see my results and my teachers also advised me to like try like another like Russell good like uni like King's or like Birmingham. So this is what I'm trying to do, and I see this as a good opportunity. So why not?
Excellent. Well, congratulations to you again, and thank you very much for speaking to us. And there are lots of stories like that here in this hall, coming in and out. Lots of students who have been coming, and I'll just show you a little bit about what they're doing. They're picking up their results from this desk over here. You can see some students that we spoke to earlier in the background there. And then they can get some UCAS support if they want, in terms of helping to choose which university and how to get into universities. Remember, a lot of students will leave home and start living in a new accommodation. So lots of help there. And then there's a desk here that says destinations, and that's so that they can let their school know what they're doing next in case they want to join an alumnus club or anything like that.
Sadia, great stuff. And Charlotte, I think, is still with us as well. We've got a lot of focus on the results and what it means for the education and the next steps. But it's also a moment, of course, when friends can come together that final time before they go off to universities, and a big moment of celebration tonight. Maybe Charlotte is not there, in fact. But we can reflect on that.
And
because it is an important...
It is really true, because I actually think that was the last time you got to spend lots of time with your school friends.
Yeah.
And you make new friends at university, but it's not the same as...
Exactly. And do you know what, the other thing I was forgetting about, it's mid to late August. It is that awful long period. I mean, I'm not blaming the teachers, there's an awful lot to mark and all that, but it is quite... It hangs over most of that summer when you finish school. And now you have that final...
first summer as an adult almost as well.
Yeah, and then you have this final week or two where you can really enjoy it before you're off to the next leg.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's that relief that suddenly leaves your shoulders. And just reflecting on those students that were plucky enough to come on Sky News and open those results, I still can't quite get my head around it, because I remember getting mine and having to do it alone, no one else around me, and had a look at them, and then I could talk to everyone. But that was something quite special, don't you think?
Yeah, there's no way I would ever open these things on national TV. I wouldn't even open them in front of my family. I would definitely be on. I mean, send me into space. Absolutely fine with that.
Darren,
just do not make me open my
I'm with you. I didn't do it with my family. I went off quietly.
Yes.
I remember phoning in to get them. Is this common that everyone all...
I definitely got mine in the post.
Gathers.
I got mine in the post.
I think I seem to think that if you wait for the post, you had to wait an extra day. If you phoned in, you got them.
Oh, wow. OK.
But anyway, congratulations again to everyone getting their results. Huge congratulations. We're out of time. Jane Secker up next.
Hello, you're watching Sky News Today with me, Jane Secker. It's 10 o'clock. These are our headlines. Breaking news. Sky News understands Ukrainian troops are thought to have used British Challenger 2 tanks in their offensive inside Russia.
Okay. What did you get?
Top A-level grades rise. Results day for hundreds of thousands of students. See 82% get their first choice of university place.
And here we go.
Okay.
What did you get?
A star AA.
On the up, the UK economy grows 0.6% in the second quarter of the year, despite strikes and the election flatlining progress in June. Crunch talks on the Middle East ceasefire, discussions to be held in Doha amid ongoing concerns over the crisis. And a special report from the overdose capital of America. We talk to the former opioid addicts, helping others put down the pills. Hello, good morning. We'll bring you all the very latest on the A-level results in just a moment. But before that, we begin with breaking news. Sky News understands Ukrainian troops are thought to have used British Challenger 2 tanks in their offensive inside Russia. Let's go live now to our Defence and Security editor, Deborah Haynes, who's in northeastern Ukraine. Deborah, does this change anything, the fact that British hardware has been used on Russian soil?
Well, so I understand that it's thought that that is the case. It's not yet confirmed, but if it is confirmed, then this would be the first time that British main battle tanks operated by Ukrainian forces would have been used in combat on Russian territory. Now, the Ministry of Defence in London declined to comment on operational details, and the Ukrainian armed forces didn't offer a comment, but the UK has confirmed that Ukraine is free to use British weapons on Russian territory as part of its war, its defence of Russia's war here in Ukraine, according to government policy. And a source has said to me that that does include Challenger 2 tanks that the UK gifted to Ukraine last year. And this source signalled that they had been used as part of the offensive into Kursk region, which began on the 6th of August. In terms of the wider mission, we know that that the 82nd Air Assault Brigade, which is an elite unit within the Ukrainian Armed Forces, they have been the ones that have been using British tanks since the UK gifted them to Ukraine. And we also know that elements of that brigade are operating inside Russia as part of this operation. Now, details of when or how many Challenger 2 tanks have been used are not clear yet, so we will have to wait and see if there is any comments. There's been a huge amount of operational security around Ukraine's operation into Russia. But in terms of the Challenger 2 tanks, you'll remember that the UK led all of its allies at the beginning of last year when it agreed to offer Challenger 2 tanks to Ukraine. It gave 14 of these tanks. They've been in service in the British Army since the 1990s, but they are extremely credible and powerful pieces of equipment. We know that one Challenger 2 tank was actually destroyed in operations in September of last year, being used by Ukrainian forces, so they are clearly out on the battlefield and in use. But in terms of what effect it might or might not have on the operations inside Kursk region, one defence analyst who I was speaking to about this said that if the Challenger 2 tanks really are on the ground, then they will be making a difference.
Deborah, thanks very much. Well, to A-levels now, and there's been a rise in top A-level grades this morning as hundreds of thousands of students got their results. 27.8% of students received A's and A stars, which is up by 0.6 percentage points on last year and above pre-pandemic levels. But the overall pass rate has fallen slightly to 97.2%, which is lower than last year and the pre-pandemic year of 2019. Maths remains the most popular subject, with the number of students choosing the subject exceeding 100,000 for the first time, up 11% on last year. A short time ago, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said congratulations to all students receiving their A-level, T-level and BTEC results. You've worked hard to get here. Now nothing should hold you back from achieving your ambition. My government's mission will be to break down barriers to opportunity for young people across Britain. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, says she recognises the disruption this year's students have faced.
It's a really exciting day for our young people. I know how nervous they'll be at the moment, and I do just want to say a huge congratulations to all of the young people collecting their results today. They've shown enormous resilience and hard work in the face of lots of disruption in recent years, and they should be enormously proud of what they've achieved. And their teachers and staff deserve our huge praise for all the work that they've done to support young people.
Well, Sadia Chowdhury is at St Mark's Academy in South London, and Paul Kelso joins us from Coventry University. Sadia, to you first of all. So students doing better than ever, the number of top grades up again.
Yeah, and just earlier we spoke to someone who is doing a reverse clearing. She's going to a university that is better than the one she had initially chosen. But listen, I don't want to waste any more time on that because I've made Ikram wait to open her results live on Sky News. Ikram, thanks so much for doing that. Go ahead, open your envelope and let us know how you're feeling.
I'm feeling really nervous.
And what subjects did you do?
I did sociology, psychology and English literature.
Oh my God, A. Well done, congratulations. How does that make you feel now?
So good. I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, I kind of put so much pressure on myself. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Well, congratulations. And what are your plans next?
I'm taking a gap year, probably to work and travel and, yeah, take a break from education for once. I'm so happy.
Excellent. And has the wait to open your results ruined the summer holidays? What has that wait been like?
I didn't really let it consume my mind too much. I went on holiday, so I was able to relax and take a break from it all. It was only till last night I was really nervous about it, but yeah, I'm really happy.
I was speaking to one of your friends earlier who was saying that, this comes after 2 years of real hard work. Talk to me a bit about that. And is it something that you remember, or have you just sort of blocked that out now?
I do remember. It was a lot of hard work, from year 12, putting in the hours. So I'm really, really happy that it's paid off finally, and I get to celebrate with my family. So.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you again for opening your results live here on Sky News. And just like Ikram, there are students coming through these doors all morning, opening their envelopes, many of them celebrating. And for the ones who didn't get the grades that they wanted, there is a desk here for UCAS support so that they can get all the help they need to make the choice for what they're going to do next.
Thanks very much, Sadia, and well done her. Well done for waiting and doing it live on telly, bless her. Let's talk to Paul Kelso, who's down at UCAS headquarters. And Paul, more students are being accepted now onto degree courses in the UK than ever.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? And that's one we just heard from one of the lucky ones who passed all their grades. I'm actually at Coventry University's clearing room. They call it the clearing front line. 50 or so people in here taking calls from those who perhaps haven't hit their grades this morning or want to know what's out there. They've got about 1,500 places to fill here, and that work starts now. But let's have a look at the national picture, and what we've just seen in that wonderful moment of those 3 A's is reflected in the national picture. Across the board, A-levels are flat, but students are achieving their goals. A star, the highest grade, 9.3% of students have got that. That's up very slightly on last year. A star to A, 27.8%, again, up slightly. And A star to E grades, 97.2%. A slight fall, but only moderate and in line with certainly with last year. Vocational training qualifications, 250,000 people have taken those. That includes BTECs and T-levels. 9% of them have got the very top grade. There are different kinds of grades, but again, very positive results there. We can show you a comparison, I think, of just drilling into these numbers a bit, the A-star grades over the last 5 years. And the point of this is to show what happened with COVID, with the change in marking and grades, when we saw that inflation in the COVID years when teachers were giving grades. Well, this is the first year that marking and teaching and grading has returned to pre-COVID levels. If you look at today's numbers for A-star, the far right-hand side of your screen and the far left for 2019 pre-COVID, they're about the same. So it's a deflation in COVID numbers, but it is a return to where grades roughly were before. As far as universities go, a great deal of concern across the university sector about whether students will be coming forward. There's a funding crisis in the university sector, partly because fees simply have fallen in real terms in line with inflation. They don't cover the cost of education, but the numbers from UCAS are encouraging this morning. 425,000 students have been accepted onto courses. That's up 3% on last year. 82% of them have got their first choice. And overseas students, upon whom the sector has come to rely, they pay much higher fees, concerned that new visa rules might put them off. Well, the numbers are flat so far. The numbers today, 51,000 applications, although there's been a fall from applications from China, which until last year was the biggest single provider of overseas students. One other line, a record number of kids from disadvantaged backgrounds have been getting university places. It looks like around 30% of the population, of the youth population, is applying for university. Remember that target of Tony Blair's 50%? Well, the sector is on its way to that. Whether it remains a target is not clear, but there's clearly quite a lot of positive news for students, as we've seen. There's a bit of positive news for the university and education sector, which was very worried about whether the numbers today would bear out fears that this will be a crunch year, threatening the survival, perhaps, of some institutions. Well, the initial numbers look quite positive.
Paul, thanks very much. And coming up at 10:20, we're going to be joined by the Higher Education Minister, Baroness Jackie Smith, so stay with us for that. Now, the UK's economy's grown in a fresh sign of recovery ahead of the Chancellor's upcoming budget. Official figures say it went up by 0.6% between April and June, which was widely in line with forecasts. But the Office for National Statistics say that there was no growth in the month of June, blaming the flatlining on businesses delaying purchases because of the general election. Well, the growth rate for the first 6 months is the second highest among the G7 group of industrialised nations, with only America performing better on 0.7%. A short time ago, we heard from the Chief Secretary to the Treasury.
The economic facts are clear. Because we have the highest debt burden that we've had for over 60 years, and we're having to spend billions and billions of pounds on debt interest to pay that off every month, and because working people have got the highest tax burden since the 1940s, people at home know, and anyone can look at the statistics, that what we inherited from the Conservatives was the worst fiscal inheritance since the Second World War. And that means we've got very challenging economic circumstances. We welcome growth in the economy, and growth is our first and most important mission here at the Treasury, but we've got much, much more work to do to recover from the mess that we were left with.
Political correspondent Darren McCaffrey is in Westminster for us. This will be welcomed by the Chancellor and the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, as we saw there, but this is something that, in all fairness, we could really lay at the feet of the previous government's door.
Indeed, and that's why we've seen, Jane, a lot of frustrated Conservatives this morning who are pointing to the fact that actually the UK economy has performed pretty well this year. In fact, as you pointed out, it's been the best performing economy in the G7 so far in 2024. And it's really interesting, isn't it, listening to Darren Jones there. Yes, he's welcoming the news, but with massive caveats. Normally, governments would be crowing about these GDP figures, but what Labour are trying to do fundamentally is to really emphasise with the electorate, if you like, that they think they've inherited a terrible mess and that they want to gain credit for any economic bounce in the future. But when you look at the raw economics this week, when you look at the macro picture for the UK, it is pretty good. Unemployment is down, wages are up. You add to the fact that inflation is pretty stable, and you've got these good GDP figures today. It is not a surprise that the Conservative Party are trying to claim credit for it and suggesting that things are not nearly as bad as Labour are suggesting. This is Laura Trott, who's the Shadow Chief Secretary from the Treasury, speaking a little earlier.
Look, these are really positive GDP figures this morning, but the only person who's not out celebrating them is the Chancellor. You know, Rachel Reeves is sitting in the Treasury fuming because this is yet more data to undermine her narrative that the economic inheritance was bad, and she can no longer use that as a pretext for the tax rises that she was planning all along.
So we've got those frustrated Conservatives. We've got a Labour Party who actually